right, welcome to RPG Archive with our perennial. Have you ever seen the show? Oh God, there's a show. Tim Heidecker does a show on YouTube where he does movie reviews with Greg.
Tim Heidecker?
Yeah, with Greg Turkington.
Context.
It's called On Cinema. And he does a show, and every time he does the show, he has the same co-host. But he keeps calling him a co-host because he's like being disrespectful to him. It's like you're my co-host for almost every single show on this damn show.
Basically, yeah, we've come up together on your channel. Yeah. Hi, I'm Majora T, aka Teddy. Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah. So anyway, here's Teddy. You guys know him. You guys love him. Majora T. Check out his YouTube channel, Majora T. And
the Button Mappers, our other podcast channel.
Absolutely. Button Mappers 2 is killing it. I'm going to make this full screen. I don't know why I didn't do that already. Anyway, we got a great show today. We're doing SMT Nocturne. For the uninitiated, that's Shin Megami Tensei 3, the first SMT game, official SMT game released in America. And of course...
Mega 10, baby!
Yeah, this is our first broach of the Mega 10. We've technically, I did a show with Alex where we did Persona 5, but they took the SMT off that and are trying to make it a separate thing. To me, it's still the same, but apparently I think for branding purposes, they're trying to go the other way with it. So we got an awesome show. We got a lot of details to go over. The story of the making of, which there isn't much, and then the actual game itself, which is huge. And then where we go from here with the SMT series. Are you excited about Shin Megami Tensei?
Holy shit, man. I love this series. This is great. I'm stoked. This is my third mainline Mega 10 game. And I've been a big fan ever since I played 4 on the 3DS. And when they did the remaster this year, I dug in deep into 3. I previously tried it on the PS2. Wasn't for me. But this one, it really resonated with me, and I've got a lot to say about it. So, yes, very excited.
Huge, huge show. Before we get too far into it, I just want to make sure everyone knows we got a podcast on Apple Podcasts. I think we're on Spotify, maybe. And then, obviously, we're here on YouTube, so hi. This is what we're seeing. I think most of the people that we see are here on YouTube, so we can actually say hi to you. Hello.
Subscribe if you like RPGs.
Yeah. And then
archive them.
Also, make sure to check out Reddit. We have a Reddit that we built called RPG Archive. So make sure you find it on Reddit, join. We put up all of our new content. And we might be doing some giveaways coming up. So make sure you check it out. There's just going to be a lot going on there. Polls, exciting questions, and your chance to have a voice in these podcasts where we ask you Q&A and we try to answer your questions right here on the show. So...
Yes, absolutely. This is a great opportunity to get your posts featured because we did try and roll this out for this archive. It didn't quite work, but we wanted to kind of inventory your thoughts on the game that we are going to archive, in this case, SMT3 Nocturne. So if you still want to do that, you can check out the Reddit. You can leave a post. Maybe we'll read it in the future.
Yeah. Maybe there'll be a day where we just read stuff from the Reddit if it gets big enough. So that'd be fun.
Sounds good.
Anyway, let's jump right in. Before we talk about the game, I always like to talk about the making of, figuring out how this game started, what's going on. We do have some references here. We're going to be talking about the Wikipedia, both the fan Wikipedia for Shin Megami Tensei 3 and Wikipedia. We have some one-up references, and there's a lot going on here. Let's get right into it. And let's talk about Megami Tensei. I don't think we're ever going to play 1 and 2. I don't want to say we won't, but it's just unlikely.
Might not.
Based on the releases and stuff, it's probable we'll never play it. So we'll never get the full introduction to the series. But I did want to get it now. Megami Tensei. The series was originally based on Digital Devil's Story, a science fiction novel series by Aya Nishitani. The series takes its name from the first book's subtitle. Most Megami Tensei titles are standalone entries with their own stories and characters. Recurring elements include plot themes, a story shaped by the player's choices, and the ability to fight using and often recruiting creatures, demons, personas, to aid the player in battle. Elements of philosophy, religion, occultism, and science fiction have all been incorporated into the series at different times. So that's where Megami Tensei comes from. Have you delved into Digital Devil's Story, which sounds so similar to Digital Devil Saga, which I totally want to play.
I've delved into Digital Devil Saga.
Yeah. But have you read any of these books?
Sounds great. No, I haven't. Have you? Do you know anything about them besides what we pulled?
No, absolutely nothing.
I'm so curious. Is this localized? Can you read it in English? Or is this something that was, just primarily in Japan? Because the author seems Japanese based on the naming.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of like The Witcher. I bought The Witcher because they localize all the stories. Apparently they're really good. I never read them, but I have them sitting here. I should totally one day just bust them.
I read the first book. Was not that big a fan.
Oh, okay.
It's a shame because I'm coming in with the game and the Netflix series in the back of my mind.
Okay.
And I thought those were honestly more well developed than the book. So it's one of those weird paradoxes where the book I didn't find better than the movie. But I'm also judging it off the first book. That's like judging Harry Potter off the Sorcerer's Stone.
That Sorcerer's Stone is pretty good.
Okay.
You know what's funny about that? I actually read Prisoners of Azkaban first.
I think I got that one early too. That must have been where the series was like blowing up.
Oh yeah, and I found Sorcerer's Stone in the garbage can and pulled it out and then read it. So,
like the real Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's talk about this a little bit though, because there's some interesting aspects to the concept of the game. Everything from philosophy, religion, occultism, and science fiction. Those are very unique aspects, and I think we see them spill over into the Megami Tensei games. Where have you seen that done in the series? Specifically, standout parts for you, like in the Personas or the Mega 10 games or the spin-offs, and what value do they have to you?
Well, philosophy, religion, and occultism for sure are in all of them. Like that's, they're all kind of like, they're all demons. So it's like the whole demonic thing is so present and so much fun to like experience what their vision of all these demonic creatures are and the physical embodiment of some of these. We have freaking Lucifer in this game. So it's just fun to see what they think that he looks like or he would look like. Philosophy we're going to get into the philosophy of this game. It's definitely deeper than most games that came out on the PS2 at this time. So there's a lot of philosophy, and then religion on the backside of occultism. And the makers of this game refer to it as Gnosticism, which I guess makes sense. Science fiction is interesting because I think they dabble in it. I read that 2 is heavily science fiction based, like it's in the future. Okay. But on this one, they went away from that. So science fiction kind of goes back and forth. But usually it's how they like... I think on some of them they have like special tools they're able to use to end up using demons. And maybe that's where science fiction comes in. But I don't think science fiction plays in as hard.
Not as they're making it out to be. Not in all of them. I think Soul Hackers is a remake of maybe the one on the Saturn, but I don't know which one that is. That one's very like virtual reality-esque. Mm-hmm. That one's very sci-fi to me. I definitely see what you're talking about with the creative renditions of these religious mythological figures, and I always appreciate that in the Mega 10 games. Mm-hmm. I remember because I started with 4 in Apocalypse, this heavy basis in mythology and literature, and these creatures from all different religious practices from around the world, and I think in Nocturne you see a lot based in Hinduism. You do see like I see Ganesh, Lord Ganesh. They have Hanuman, who's like one of the mythological monkeys, but they have other ones like Onkat. There's a familiar one. But the fascinating thing is that if you go and do the research into any one of these names, you will see them come up in mythological texts. But the fact that like there is an entire lore to them and seeing how they play in the actual story, like in Nocturne when you see Thor for the first time, like that's pretty heavy, you're seeing like the god of lightning here as the one of the primary emblems for the mantra demons.
Well, yeah.
So
you got Thor, you got Odin and Loki right there at like Endgame, but it's cool,
right? But some of them you see throughout, like you see before they can even become recruitable. Mm-hmm. And so like they have some distinguished relevance and importance to the player. And I think that the artist's rendition of them is always something fun to behold and to see how it changes as the games evolve. I do think that it does feel like a mesh of all things. So then, rather than being any like one specific commentary on any one of these things, it becomes kind of just like they're all thrown in a blender and they come out together.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I never think that this game. One of the geniuses, and we'll probably get into this more later, but it has all these really big ideas, but they do a good job of keeping them all subtle enough that, like, if this were a Final Fantasy game, it would have been like overblown within the first 10 hours or something. It would have just been exploding. But they do a really good job of kind of keeping it down to earth, ironically. We're trying to explore all these weird topics at once. So I think they do a pretty fascinating job with that.
I think that brings up an interesting thing for the concept of the game, and I did pull a little conversation here. I'm just going to read from the first paragraph of it. It's from an interview that was archived between One Up magazine or website. I'm not really sure what their website is. I don't know what GMR stands for, but it's the interviewer. And then they interview both one of the producers and also the artist. I think Kaneko is his last name. I don't have the first name in front of me, but we can clarify that later. The question was, how did the Megami Tensei style originate in the early days of the series, and how has it evolved over so many years and games? Kaneko, simply put, it's an antithesis to mainstream fantasy works, such as The Lord of the Rings and Dungeons & Dragons. Back then, all RPGs were fantasy-based, and I wondered why there were no RPGs that took place in a modern world. I wonder if he's ever played Earthbound. If there aren't any, then why don't I make one? That's how it started. Another thing that bothered me was the trend of the main character always being portrayed as someone special. A legendary warrior, for example. It was the equivalent of saying, you can't succeed unless you're from a wealthy family. And I just couldn't stand that. I wasn't born with special genes, and I'm sure most other players weren't either. No matter who you are, if you're given a chance and you have the guts to try your best, you can become a hero. That became the concept of Megami Tensei. What do you think overall of the artist's words on the concept for the Mega 10 series?
Oh my god, I adore that he's thinking that way. One of my least favorite things, and ironically it's in one of my favorite series ever, Dragon Quest, but I hate it when it turns out your hero is like the chosen hero to like I guess I don't hate it. I just like I kind of roll my eyes and just accept it. But like in the newest one, which I love. It's like my favorite one ever. It's my favorite, probably one of my favorite games. But your hero is the luminary and he's like able to like the world shapes around him. It's like there's a part where and it's at the very beginning, so it's not spoiling anything, but he's getting attacked by a bird and then lightning comes from the sky and shocks the bird to protect him. It's like, why am I doing this? Like I could go on this adventure, but it seems like it doesn't matter if I interfere. He's just going to succeed anyway. God wants him to win. So I like it when there's a game like this where it's like, no, it's just some dude, like some kid, and he just happened upon this thing, and it's actually hard. So if you have the guts, you, the player, have the guts to make it through this, then you'll be successful.
I have to retract what I said with the Earthbound statement because I'm realizing that this was set in context of the first Mega 10 games, which came out on the Super Nintendo. So it's perhaps at that time there really weren't many. And I definitely think that, like, we looked at the box art for the North American Dragon Warrior games, and, they were very, like, Conan, Lord of the Rings-esque.
Yeah. And,
it is an overplayed trope. And, I think that trope has kind of died off. I think that was primarily a product of the 90s and maybe early 2000s. I don't think we see that as engaging to kids nowadays. I don't think they're as into Lord of the Rings as maybe I was or people before me. But I definitely appreciate that as well, because I do think that this is kind of boundary pushing in terms of the Mega 10 series and also just RPGs in general. And I think it's been healthy for the genre.
I'm going to counter you and also support you at the exact same time by saying that Earthbound was on the Super Nintendo, but Mother 1 was in Japan.
Okay. Fair enough. Valid counter. I accept.
They do say a couple more fun things in here. Gods, demons, and various events that are present in the series can be thought of as metaphors for real-life social structures. The main characters in these games employ demons to fight against powerful enemies. They mature as they overcome the anxieties and anger that they feel towards society. Resistance to society's norms and growing out of adolescence. A hard rock interpretation of Pinocchio. That's the basic style of Megami Tensei. Hell yeah, dude.
Oh, there's a lot of hard rock in this series.
Oh, yeah.
I love, and we're going to talk about the music later, but there are some really badass themes here. But I do, how much did you see that in our playthrough of Nocturne?
Oh, my God.
The idea of maturity and, character growth.
That's the fun. I heard you talking to some other people, because you're doing a whole series on this on your channel, too. And you've got a lot of SMT3 content going on there, and among other things. But so I heard some of what you were saying to other people, and you're totally right when you say that in this game you do have character growth, but it's not the character growth you have in other RPGs. The character growth is you. The character growth is how you view what they're talking about and their different philosophies on what the world should be, and then your choices on which one to pursue. So, absolutely, you grow up. This character growth is at a perfect time because he's, just about to be an adult. And he's going to make that decision. And really, you are going to make that decision through your experiences. And I think that's a perfect example of growing up and just being faced with all these different crazy ideas that you don't fully understand until you see the consequences of how they play out.
That is very unique to the concept of what playing a Megami Tensei game is, because a lot of it is choice driven and character driven. And while that's been played out to a T in most video games nowadays, it has a real world impact on the world that you create in this game. And it is a big indicator of, what kind of player are you, especially on that first playthrough? What side do you agree with? Even if you're left with bad choices, which is the best of the worst choices?
Oh, God, yeah.
If you don't see a choice that's apparent, you like the concept, are you still going to go for it? It's one of the things I almost recommend doing is just consult the walkthrough as little as possible for how to get which ending. Just play it and see what you get. I also found that, if you look at this quote in context of the side characters in Nocturne, Isamu, Chiaki, and obviously your teacher Takao, and then Shijima, and also some of the sub characters too. They have visions for the world, but some of them don't have them off the bat. A lot of them kind of discern them as they go through the game. Some of them start and they realize what is a problem for them, the lack of power, being pulled in this cataclysmic world and not knowing which way you're going. Do I want to side with the ultimate plan to create a world of silence and peace, or is there something more to it? So a lot of that is presented to you in the choices that you get. Mm-hmm. It is partly your decision, but it's also partly the decisions of the people around you, and for you to decide where you align. I remember one piece of NPC dialogue where it's one of the mannequins, and I don't want to go too deep into this because we're going to talk about mannequins later, but he says, which side are you going with? Is it the reason of Musubi? Is it the reason of Shijima? And I'm getting some of the names wrong, but or Gozu Tenno, I forget what that is, the mantra, or none of them. Pick none of them. What he says is, that's a choice too.
Yeah. Dude, did you pick every single one just to see what he would say?
No, I didn't, because I just went with the path I aligned with. I didn't want to screw anything up.
That's funny. Yeah, that was a great moment. And that's a really, really profound statement. And that's the thing about the series is it's very profound because it doesn't talk a whole lot. So whenever it makes the effort to say something to you, it's usually pretty important. And just for trivia's sake, SMT Shin Megami Tensei is, or Megami Tensei, maybe not the Shin, I don't remember, but rebirth/reincarnation of the goddess.
Or the translation of the word Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah. Huh. Seems right.
Very apt for Nocturne.
reincarnation. Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Real quick, we're just going to jump in here. We're going to talk about the history here. I want to look at Atlas in 2003. This is the year that Nocturne released. Actually, we'll talk more about the release itself, but I just want to get a state of where Atlas was at. They released a slew of games. Some of these I actually really want to jump into. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, Shin Megami Tensei on the Game Boy Advance. I didn't even know that.
Let's say the dates for these two. So February 20th, Nocturne, March 28th, SMT, Game Boy Advance.
I don't know what that
Read this one for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Toshi Kaimaku Ganbare Kyu Kaio. May 15th, 2003. Me neither. 2000 or PS2.
Followed by
I guess.
Hamster Paradise Pure Heart.
Oh yeah. That's my where my heart is. Mr. Paradise. It's Digital Kids though. Is that some other company?
Yeah, they must have done the developing. Mostly Atlas develops, but there are a couple instances you'll see here where they don't. You got like a weird, I don't know if these are puzzle games or what these are, but SMT Devil Children Puzzle de Call.
Released in Spain?
Devil Children 2 Hono no Show. Hono no Show.
No Show.
I don't know. And then Cory, the same thing, Cory no Show. Which those are almost
Devil
like
Children series.
Are those like a red and blue kind of situation? Like a Pokemon red and blue?
It sounds like it. I'll open it up real quick while you're...
Okay. Then we got SMT 2, also for the Game Boy Advance. X Jinsei Game 2. That one was by Takara Tomy. Busen Zero Wizardry Alternative Neo, which is like the craziest sounding name for what is assumedly some kind of wizardry-like game. Double Dragon Advanced and Growlancer 4 Wayfarer of Time, which was CareerSoft, which they actually in like 2001 or something, they actually purchased CareerSoft. I guess so they could just make the Growlancer games. Also worth noting, later on in 2003, and that's why you see that Takara Tomy published this game or developed it, whatever. Takara publishes or buys the controlling stake in Atlas. And if you just want to know what Takara is, they were primarily, it seems like a toy company, but also dabbled in video games. As far as video games go in the 90s, they published the Chibi Maruko-chan video games, and they ported some of the SNK Neo Geo-based arcade games for 8 and 16-bit consoles. These included the Fatal Fury and Samurai Showdown series. They were sold for use with Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the Game Boy, or the Famicom. So they didn't do a whole ton with them. It's like, I think they mostly used them so that they could get these. It looks like Atlas. I think they only released like a couple games under the banner. Mostly an in and out kind of thing.
Do you know that with Nocturne in Japan, there was a big marketing system alongside the game? So, Tomy is a toy company. I don't know what the connection is there with Nocturne, but some of the things that were included in its release were, in the initial release, it came with a piece of incense.
Really?
It's supposed to signify, like whatever, like the spirituality of the game or something. I know that there was a book series like that was released alongside this, like a manga book series. I'll see if I can find a few more. The Devil Children series looks like an RPG series, so I presume that would be similar to like maybe the Pokemon response. I can't speak to it. I'm really not sure.
Mm-hmm. I remember that they did release one. I saw it on one of those like do you know gaming things. So I know that they did at some point. I'm gonna assume that that's what that is, although I don't know. Okay. In our thing, you can correct us in the comments.
Absolutely.
I know you will because I've seen you do it before. In 2005, Takara produced Walkie Bits, a colorful, multifunction miniature robotic turtle. It was named Time Magazine's best invention in a robot category. There you go. There's your bit about Takara. So yeah, interesting that they released a lot of good games. I would love to play Shin Megami Tensei and 2 on the Game Boy Advance. I wonder if I can get those. I wonder if those have been like, because I'm sure those are just in Japan. So I wonder if I can get those translated.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way. I also have here, we're going to talk about the versions of this game that came out, but to commemorate the release of Maniacs, which was the second edition in Japan, a PlayStation 2 memory card decorated with the main protagonist's tattoos was released. A novelization of the game written by Boogie Tumon. Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne Chaos was released on August 20th, 2003 by Enter Brain. A CD drama based on the game was released on April 23rd, 2003 by King Records. A comic anthology adaptation was released by Enter Brain in June 2004. So you have a lot of side material coming alongside this.
Oof, that's crazy. We didn't get any of that, did we?
We got Dante.
We got Dante. Dude, I would be... okay, well, we could talk about that when we talk about the other thing. I had a revelation this morning. But anyway, I want to talk real briefly about SMT If. Shin Megami Tensei If, ellipses. It's a... Am I going to get that guy? Oh, I don't have that guy pulled up. Okay, 1 second. Open link. Okay. How did that not work? Shin Megami Tensei If. Click on the thing. Okay, so here we are. It's a Japanese role-playing game developed and published by Atlus in 1994 for the Super Famicom. It is a spin-off from the SMT series, itself part of the larger Megami Tensei franchise. Since release, it has been ported to mobile devices, the PlayStation, and the Microsoft Windows, and re-released digitally through Nintendo's Virtual Console service. The story follows a student of Karu Kozaka High School after their school is sucked into the realm of demons by a vengeful student's demon summoning spell going wrong. So if that sounds like something that we might have heard of before, unofficially, this is like the first Persona game, which is kind of interesting to see that it actually came out on the Super Nintendo. Okay. And actually was remade on the PlayStation. And the reason I bring up the PlayStation is that was actually intended to be the end of SMT. They had no plans after this to make any more Shin Megami Tensei games. That's not to say that they were saying they were done with the series. I've tried to figure that out, and I can't really find anything official, but they just had no plans. Like, that was kind of it. And I find it super interesting they would release that, and then, of course, after that, they're going to start making Persona alongside the SMT games. And Persona, arguably... maybe not even arguably at this point, is way bigger than SMT out here in the States. I don't know what the state of it is in Japan. Are you familiar with the blow up of Persona out there?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, but it's so fascinating that you could almost be like any Persona fans, you're just like, hey, have you ever played the first one? And they're like, oh, on the PlayStation? You're like, no, on the Super Famicom. like damn.
It's crazy because you made the allusion to it, but I mean, we've talked about Radical Dreamers, which was, the failed spin-off of Chrono Trigger. And this is like almost like what would happen if Radical Dreamers went right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's kind of crazy.
Essentially, this led to the blow up of Persona, especially out here in the States.
Yeah. Apparently people people didn't like it as much at first because it wasn't as grandiose as Shin Megami Tensei usually is in terms of its scale, in terms of what's at stake. It's a lot smaller, just a high school kid and dealing with, personal issues as opposed to the fate of the world. But clearly it's caught on, and I think especially once they included the social aspects. And then there you go. That series is huge. So good for them. Taking a little risk.
I don't have a great number here up, but it looks like Persona 5 Royal has sold approximately 1.8 million copies since its Japanese release on October 31st, 2019. I'm getting this from Persona Central. This was written June 30th, 2021.
That's phenomenal.
Based on their fiscal year statements for March 2021.
Which that officially makes it Sega's greatest property ever. Congratulations, Sega. That's my dig. whenever I can get like a degree of making fun of Sega, I will jump on it. So there you go. Speaking of
previous, no, go ahead. We'll stop there.
Oh, okay. Are you sure? You don't got a good one?
It just says the previous reported sales record for Persona 5 Royal was 1.4 million copies sold as of last year.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know if that's just an update or what, so I can't make heads or tails of that.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of Persona, let's compare SMT versus Persona. And I think in that same one-up interview, is it the same one? GMR, again, we don't know who that is. We can call him George.
Interviewer. George.
The two Persona games for the Sony PlayStation were the closest Americans have gotten to the Shin Megami Tensei universe. How do those games relate to what we'll see in Shin Megami Tensei 3? What's the same and what's different? And Kaneko says, Persona was geared towards a younger audience. It had a story that primarily dealt with the main character's psychology rather than a broader theme. One idea that is presented throughout the Megami Tensei series is that people often lack excitement in their daily lives. Nocturne is about the extraordinary events that people wish for, but can't actually experience in normal life. As a high school student in the game, your life is typical and the world around you is peaceful. But one day a paradigm shift destroys the world, and from then on, you must carefully decide your fate. One option is to become a hero. I guess that's kind of what we were talking about with the if thing, but yeah.
There's a lot to this because if we're gonna frame this as like Shin Megami Tensei versus Persona, what's the same and what's different, or like which one is better? There's a lot to look at here. First off, I have to acknowledge this, that Kazuma Kaneko is the artist, the SMT series.
Yeah.
Yet, he is also the spokesperson in every interview that we found on Nocturne. Yeah. Where, like, one of the producers is in this same interview, and Kaneko is taking the lead.
Yeah.
It's happening. But you know what? He has such a great grasp on, like, the series. You can tell he's been there since SMT 1. And, you know, I think first we have to address difference in concept. He says Persona is an exploration in the main character's psychology, whereas the Mega 10 games is about more so, I would say, a sociological thing. This is kind of just extrapolating from what he's saying, but I bolded that Nocturne is about the extraordinary events that people wish for but can't actually experience in normal life. So to me, it's like, you know, one is looking in the mind of a person and the other is looking at societal issues. To what extent do you agree, disagree, or see that in the games?
I think it's so blatant. I think that is the truest statement you could make comparing these two games. In Persona, you're worried about your school. You're worried about your friends. You're worried about the people closest to you. You're worried about your stats and how you're going to, you know, progress through the story. In SMT, you have no friends. You have no friends.
So-called friends.
Yeah.
One.
And the time that they're like people that you know is like 3 minutes before the world like ends, and then they're like these horrible monsters that you have to figure out which one you agree with. There is no school. Like there's none of that small stuff is there. It's not introverted, it's extroverted. It's you experiencing the world, whereas Persona is usually confined to one very narrow part. Or at least you could argue that it's actually about the same size if you look at it from like traveling around Tokyo, but it still feels much more confined than SMT ever did. So, man, they could not be more different.
In one, your decisions seem almost trivial. In the other, they make you stop and reflect and pause on what it is you're about to do.
Mm-hmm.
In playing Nocturne, I must have stopped when somebody asked me a question to because it doesn't happen a lot. You're given a couple times where you can align with a person or think about how you want to respond. But when that happened, I seriously considered, do I want to go with this person? Did you have those kind of reflective experiences in playing through Megami Tensei, and did you not have that kind of experience in playing through Persona?
Yeah, well, yeah. In three, in SMT three, that's specifically my point of reference for SMT because I have not played the others extensively. Um, yeah, when you're given the option to make a decision, you feel it, and you definitely you know that what you are about to do is going to impact the world. In Persona, I think there's too many not too many, I shouldn't say that, but there's too many choices for it to matter as much as it would in SMT. The game is all about those choices and about what you choose to do with your time, but they're all trivial in the one shots, but they add up in the end. Whereas SMT3 is a couple huge decisions that make you pause and have to wait and figure out.
Absolutely. You know, I definitely see that because, you know, the decisions that you make in Persona will affect how you play the game. But essentially, it is like I'm friends with everybody, and you'll just be my bigger friend.
Mm-hmm.
In Nocturne, it is the gravity of everything is on you. And you know, SMT4, I played that one as well. That one's very similar in kind of distinguishing between the choices. In terms of the societal view, you know, like I definitely see Nocturne as bearing more of commentary on morality. It's the right thing to do. And it's not always clear. Sometimes there's a gray area about what is right and wrong. And in Persona, feel like well, I can only speak to 4 and 5, but I think no matter where you're going, you are pretty much doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's
so what. Yeah, go ahead.
That's true. Is there the choices in SMT matter to the world, and the choices in Persona matter to you? Would be maybe the best way to say it in the simplest terms. Is that
I don't. Yeah. I don't think that. I don't get a sense that Persona, and feel free to argue with me on this, but I don't feel that the decisions in Persona are a reflection on the main character's psychology. Primarily those around you and those who are conflicted, especially like if you look at Persona 5, all the people whose subconsciouses you dive into and you figure out what's wrong with them and you try and make them face to face with their persona. And that's fine, but in Nocturne, you still embody the world's conflict.
Yeah, I don't hold Persona as deeply as, I mean, this guy I think has to because it's his game. But he's saying primarily dealt with the main character's psychology rather than a broader theme. I think they still have themes, but I don't know how deep you really get into your own character's psychology so much. You get into other people's. You get into like adult psychology and understanding them, but yeah, I don't know how much necessarily you get into your own psychology that much personally. But I mean, you do with things like, you know, personas are, you know, the things your ego, right? Ego and super ego.
Ego, yeah.
But yeah, I just don't know how much I think those are that deep. But maybe somebody likes anime more than me and can disagree on that.
So with these things in mind, I think I know where you lie, but where do you fall in the Megami Tensei versus Persona debate based on your current experience, exposure?
Oh my god. I have to align myself with Persona more, and it has nothing to do with the story. I guess I'm a rare person, I've noticed online, and I don't like anime, but I really like Persona and Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. So apparently that's something wrong with me, but I just don't get into that stuff. I don't play Persona for the story or the characters per se. I play it because I really, really like the combat and the way that you get demons. And I think it's more the gameplay perspective that pulls me in, not the story. So, what about you?
It's a very interesting perspective. My experience with the series, I've played and finished Persona 4 and Persona 5. I've played and finished Shin Megami Tensei 3, 4, and 4 Apocalypse. And while I have thoroughly enjoyed my experience in both series, I would have to say that the impact of the storytelling and your association with demons is stronger in the Megami Tensei series. Does that mean I dislike Persona? No, but it doesn't do what Megami Tensei does in the same regard. It does something different. Fine. It puts you in more of an anime arc,
Yeah.
and I'm sure people will love that. I like this kind of badass human appeal. There's something very human about this. It's almost like reading a book, seeing what is the author's perspective on society as a whole through these kind of like broad themes. I think that Persona maybe has a deeper degree of personalization with the main character and characters. And that's good if you like exposition. If you like it to be told to you, what was this person's conflict and who are they? It's very flashy. In this one, I think especially in Nocturne, but even in 4, that the characters have very defined flaws, their philosophies, but also epiphanies, and the gray area between their determination of right and wrong keeps it as kind of something that's going through the back of your mind as you're playing through it. And if we're going to talk gameplay, I do prefer Mega 10 gameplay, but that's a separate combo.
Yeah. That's the thing with me is the one thing that holds SMT back for me is that I get attached to party members, and in SMT you are a solo act.
Well, at least in Nocturne on. And actually, that's not exactly true for SMT4 about halfway through. Okay. But I also could be wrong, but I think I was reading that in SMT 1 and 2, you have a set party members.
You could. I read that you could pick one of like 3 and have him come with you. But that's the thing is I like getting those other party members and sticking with them throughout the adventure. And I think Persona gets both parts right with getting the demons and then keeping regular party members.
Would challenge you on that if you know what you're doing as far as fusions and sacrifices, and especially on New Game Plus, because I was able to pick and choose which are my favorite demons that I wanted to sacrifice to level them up to get them really high and customize them, and I made them viable for my entire second playthrough.
Yeah, but that's kind of a balancing issue at that point, because you don't really grow with them at that point. They're like the monsters that were there the whole time.
So I don't know if I would frame it as an issue. It's a feature that can be taken advantage of to produce the same experience. Is it convoluted, and is it convoluted? Yes. Will everyone do it? No, but it is something that can be done in order to have that same degree of connection with, a demon party member. And then also your main character, I mean, like, I get it. Like, you need that sense of like your allies who you talk to, and yeah, your demons are not going to talk to you except when you fuse them and they say, "Haha, me Snake Cerberus, me eat you whole."
Yeah.
But I still found that I had my attachments to party members in Nocturne.
Yeah, I think like psychologically, going through these adventures, you build a certain thing with your characters. Like you root for them. Like Dragon Quest 1 or 2, really, I should say 2, 3, even 4, maybe, mostly 2 and 3. I mean, those guys are not really there.
3 though, but 3 is like you made them,
right?
They're there with you,
but they're not like people you talk to. There's like one guy you can talk to, and that's like a side quest. But it's like they're blank canvases. But you do grow attached to them, and you do have something that you can build from there.
Yeah,
and just the fact that it's gameplay, and so there is something to that in the SMT games. It's just that at a certain point, they've worn out their welcome, and that's the style of the game. That's not a shot. That's just the nature of the game. Is you've used them for what they're good for, time to upgrade. And then it's like, bye forever. Unless I need you again you can sacrifice you for something else. And it's, it's not a shot at the game. That's fine. And that's perfectly within the philosophy of what the game is representing. That's part of the whole thing. And it's not bad. It's just not necessarily what I prefer.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. I'm of two minds on that one. It's almost like you could find me on a different day. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I fuck those characters. I like the demons. So I don't know. It's hard to say. But that's a tough
return to this topic.
Persona versus SMT. Ooh.
Yeah, round 2.
Yeah. We'll do that on your channel on some podcast thing.
Sure.
We'll try to sort this out.
That's a great topic, though. I think viewers at home, let us know in the comments. Where do you stand?
Oh, yeah. Don't and be nice. People can like other things.
Yeah, this was a civil conversation. Spencer likes his Persona. I like my Megami Tensei, and we get along. We're friends inside the show and after.
Yeah, so be nice down there. All right, let's talk about more of the making of. They shifted to a third-person perspective. It's worth noting that in the past with Shin Megami Tensei, this is a classic dungeon crawling game, and we still see some of these today in like Etrian Odyssey. And I mean, there's other ones, but that's my favorite, so I'm just gonna mention that one. But this one changed to being 3D, and I think they wanted, for a couple of reasons, they did this. But they wanted to explore the PS2 space. They realized with this bigger world, they needed the PS2 hardware. Could be another reason why they waited for after the PlayStation 1. And they noticed they didn't want to make it first person because people in Japan had 3D sickness from first-person shooters.
Wow.
Which is just kind of mind-boggling and almost hilarious because in America, those are like the number one games, or were the number one games for like forever, including at this time. They were huge. And then it is true that in Japan, they don't really make first-person games. I wonder if that's like a thing with them, is that they're just not... They like can't stomach first-person shooters so much. Very weird. It's like the biggest thing here, and then over there, they literally get sick from it.
Maybe it was a bad trial run or something, because I feel like if you look nowadays, well, the Xbox isn't super popular over in Japan, but like the PlayStation 4 is, and I mean, I've played FPS games with people internationally before, so I don't know. It'd be like they just dictated their experience off one thing. I can't speak to it. I will say, though, I will take a 3D perspective RPG over a first person.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it serves to this game's benefit. I love just kind of using the right analog stick and just kind of tilting around, getting a look at the world, but also with my character in front of me. That's really great. And that main character, there's a lot to say about his design and his visual appeal. But I think he's really fitting with like the overall theme and everything.
Yeah, and that's one of the things in transition to 3D is they wanted the main character to keep your focus so that people wouldn't get sick while playing it, which is kind of cool. They did a 3D test demo using Cerberus. He was the first demon that they created. He's kind of a beastly looking one in a late game character, so it's kind of cool that that's one of the first ones they put in there.
So can I ask you, because you said that this evolved from the dungeon crawling formula. It's entirely possible that I don't know SMT 1 and 2 well enough. Those are dungeon crawling games, I presume. How well do you think Nocturne represents a 3D dungeon crawler?
That's a really good question. I don't know enough about game design to make a really intelligent decision on that question of yes or no. I would wager, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I'll say this. I think it's lacking because I think they converted the entire dungeon concept to this 3D game and then just made it 3D. Okay. So it's still very grid based, which ironically all these games are still grid based, all the way through Persona 5. Very, very grid based even now. I think they had the opportunity to not be so strict and they took the easy way out and did what they knew best. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. That's just what I see as happening.
I presume you mean this with intent, not to the overworld exploration, but with everything else. When you look at the maps, right?
Yeah, the overworld is there's like two sides to this game. There's like the Final Fantasy influence of an overworld, and they move around on that, which I think is lazy as hell. There's things I like about it, but it's still super little arrow.
Like Blue Stick Man?
Oh my god.
I guess not.
Is there any way to look worse? Jeez. Man.
I'm very excited to see what you think about 4. Continue.
That's one of my pet peeves, is if you don't make travel look and feel good, I immediately am like not liking the game. It's a weird thing. There's another game called I should love it. It's like it's called Banner Saga. It's a tactics RPG. And I really enjoyed like the opening combat. And then as soon as you're done with that, it's like, oh, go to town. And it's just like a picture of a town, and you get to click where to go in the town. I am like immediately put off, and I quit playing. And I've done it like 3 times. So
that's very interesting. Yeah.
It's just like a weird thing with me that travel has to feel comfortable and fun and engaging.
I could see that because sometimes when you come back to a room where something big happened, let's say there was a god or something that was summoned based on one of the reasons, you try and go back to it, they'll just put a photograph up saying, there's nothing happening in the room.
Yeah.
And it kicks you out.
Yeah. It's like, and it looks ugly too. It's not like
it's a bad photo. Yeah. Maybe that's just the remaster, but I will say that I find something nostalgic about it. About this kind of throwback to a computer RPG. And that even though they're working within limitations of a very rectangular grid, you look at every map, whether it be in, Ikebukuro or, Shinjuku, and I guess there's like the fountain and everything. I don't get the sense when I'm in that area that it's as rigid and uniformed as you may be making it out to be. If I compare this to like the actual dungeon crawling in Persona 4 or 5, those are some bland ass dungeons. Those are just, there's no
I don't think
motivation
5 so much. Do you think 5 is bland? 4 for sure. 4 is like,
yeah. And it's been 3 years since I played 5, but when I did play it, I do remember like that section with the van.
Oh yeah.
That was not good. This one, I could see that maybe like, you look at the walls and maybe they're a bit lacking. There's not like too much like lush environmental stuff. And so there's not really like a lot of places to look around and get a good view of everything. But I still think that there's something really cool about take for instance, the Mantra building. There's like 3 or 4 floors, and I think they're all pretty similar, but like, even within them, there's a decent, variety. Like you come in and there's these 4 torches. You go in the basement. There's a Niue standing guard, which is like kind of this big electric monster thing. To the 2 prison aisles. There's the arena where you fight Thor. There's the elevator that goes up to the 99th floor or whatever it is. And you told me I had to press triangle to skip. But then you go to the top. And it actually alters the camera shots. So that's a fixed frame.
Oh my god, I love those.
And so this progression, even within like just camera shots, is really spectacular to me.
But they're so rare. The camera shot thing is so rare. I would have loved it if it did it more often, but it didn't. Yeah. It chose to do the same. And I don't necessarily mean the environments are bland. I mean that it's you can see the square influence, where it's literally like a square, and then like it branches, because their gameplay was still rooted in that like classic dungeon crawling where you're moving on a grid. It's like they're afraid to get away from that and break that chain. So the game is still that, despite the fact that you're like a 3D person who's able to move freely. All of your movements are still based on you walking on the grid, going from grid to grid. And it's that part I feel, and again, I don't know if it's bad or not. It's hard for me to say if it's bad or good. But to me, it feels like at this point in gaming, I don't want to walk down a hallway that's a grid. I want to walk down, if I'm in a cave, I want it to be a winding cave with some parts narrow, some parts broad.
Dragon Quest VIII.
Yeah, Dragon Quest VIII is perfect. That's what Dragon Quest VIII does. You feel like you're in a living, breathing world. SMT, for better or worse, does not feel that way. It feels manufactured.
Nocturne specifically. Yes. Okay. I could see that. I could see it being like a 2D that was converted into 3D type thing. I think one area that you definitely see that is when you enter a room to talk to a person. Mm-hmm. And that's actually one area I don't think it translates as well as because if you play SMT4, when you enter those rooms and you talk to like a spirit or a figure or whatever it is, you don't even have to go walk up to them and talk to them. It just opens and you're immediately in the dialogue. And I actually found that's actually one area where I think stylistically SMT4 has a little bit of strength over Nocturne. But because you go in those rooms and you're literally going in a cubicle. Mm-hmm. Every single room that you go into is just a square.
Yeah.
If it's a conversation room. Yeah. And so at that point, what's the point, But I still found that, especially in terms of the challenges that were associated with many of these dungeons and the complications that came with them, I still found that they added so many things that were unique and competent and kept the adventuring experience engaging and exciting and really feeling the sense of threat. And, it combined with, for better or worse, that high-ass encounter ratio, you've got some death-defying adventuring to do.
Oh, yeah, and I felt right at home with it. And that, again, that's why I keep saying I can't tell if it's good or bad. I'm used to, I play Etrian Odyssey like a crazy man. So I'm used to that concept. That's not new to me. I love it. I think it's great. But when I start thinking about a 3D detached, so it's not first person anymore, I don't know. To me, it seems like a missed opportunity. But they did a good job with what they'd had. So I also can't rag on it.
Yeah. I think it's something to understand and to accept, and you don't have to prefer it. Mm-hmm. I think I'm okay with it because of the attention to detail in terms of the experience, not so much the visual department and what you see, although there are some sites. I remember the ferry site and the towers and the collapsed tower and this little construction area and everything.
Oh, that was so cool.
Oh, that's one of the best, man. And then all the little cutscenes and stuff, and we could talk about that in a bit. But I think overall, I was happy with how it translated. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think of it as a dungeon crawler for most of it. Although that is obvious that there's this kind of rectangular feel to it.
The labyrinth of them all.
That's a bitch. We could talk about that.
All right. So in an interview, I can't remember which one it was, probably the artist again, said that the focus of 2 was law and 3 is chaos, and they wanted it to feel like a journey through hell.
Let's just clarify that. So the purpose of Shin Megami Tensei 2, or the concept was law, and Shin Megami Tensei 3 was chaos. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they wanted it to feel like a journey through hell akin to Apocalypse Now, which is such a cool reference to throw into this podcast. Or just the Odyssey, if you're looking for an even older take on it.
Or Dante's Inferno was another thing I read.
Yes, yeah. So for Nocturne,
descending through the layers of hell. Go ahead.
I thought that the bubble structure of the universe, which has been discussed in cosmology and the Gnostic view of the universe as a structure with multiple spheres, were very similar. I have no idea what he's talking about when he says that. My brain shuts down halfway through that sentence.
I'll help you out here. Keep going.
I added the hollow Earth theory, and the vortex universe world concept was born. So if you don't know what the hollow Earth theory, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's a concept proposing that the planet Earth is entirely hollow or contains a substantial interior space. Notably
to the center of the Earth. Go ahead.
Notably suggested by Edmund Halley, whatever, in the late 17th century. The notion was disproved first tentatively by Pierre Boyer in 1740, then definitively by Charles Hutton in the Schehallien experiment around 1774. It's basically, at this point, anyone who believes it is considered a conspiracy theorist.
Right. Okay, so let me help you out here. So the Gnostic view of the universe. So first off, this is what I mean by like Nocturne is kind of like a blending of so many elements, and because he's talking about as far as like the idea of understanding spirituality. Gnosticism is a contrasting word to agnostic. Have you heard that before? What it means to be agnostic?
That's the only reason I know what Gnostic means, is because I am agnostic. So.
Right, same. So agnostic would contrast. Agnostic is like you don't know, you can't know. You can't know what you don't know, so you don't believe in spirituality. Gnosticism would be the opposite in that they do know, and it was actually considered heretical writing. And I was talking with my dad about it. Well, before I get to that, let me just briefly talk about Gnosticism in the little bit of reading that I did. Essentially, it's the view that you can achieve spiritual enlightenment and understanding through the soul and by having these kind of revelations and talks with mystic beings, but it happens in a very individual and spiritual level, contrasting with a lot of Orthodox Christian and Jewish views at the time. This is 1st century AD, where a lot of it was indoctrinated around this idea of sin and punishment. And this is less so about the sin and the punishment that comes with not adhering to it, but more so about just finding your spiritual self. And those type of writings were burned, are considered heretical, but it's also a philosophy that spread throughout the world, and you can see its traces in places like Persia, and there was a couple other places. My dad was saying that the founding fathers actually had a lot of Gnostic views in their founding of America. So you can actually trace that back in terms of the conceiving of America. So I thought that was pretty fascinating.
And now that's just confined to people who go to Starbucks and say that they're spiritual.
Gnostics.
Yeah,
they're speaking to God through their the Mache Latte.
The other two things in that sentence that throw me off. I mean, that one is, when you combine it with the others, is confusing. But the bubble structure of the universe, like, is that just planets? Is that what that means, or what does that mean?
I don't know.
The bubble structure.
Bubble structure, I guess.
I don't know what that means. And then he says, in the Gnostic view of the universe as a structure with multiple spheres, were very similar. Now from that,
okay. So let me help you out here. I can tell you within the game, because I did the True Demon ending and I saw hidden narrative that you don't get otherwise.
Okay.
It's only if you go venture deep into the Amala Labyrinth that you see the multiple vortex worlds being created, and Earth is not the only one where that happens, where it can die one moment and be reborn the next. And so I guess the hollow Earth theory plays into that. But I don't fully see it in Nocturne because, I think of hollow Earth theory and I think of like civilizations inside the Earth. That's not what I got when I played Nocturne, that you were going inside the Earth.
I didn't either. I think it's a great concept, but yeah, I don't think they explore that here.
It's almost like, like when you play Nocturne at the very beginning, there's a segment where the reckoning happens. I don't know if they refer to it as that, but essentially, where Kagetsuchi is brought down, and I could be butchering this a little bit, and it happens at the site of the hospital where the cultist ritual takes place, thanks to Shijima. And he has his name Shijima. We confirm that. I don't know if that's his reason or if that's his name, but basically the CEO of that company and kind of the mad scientist cult leader. When that happens, the hospital is the only vestige or area that is left somewhat untouched and where people are protected. Everywhere else in the world, everybody dies. Everybody is not necessarily reincarnated, but the world is populated then by demons and mannequins. And that's in a transitionary phase of the world becoming new again. So that's the only way that I could see this idea of like a hollow Earth, about like this interior Earth being revealed. Yeah. And only one area being kept alive. That's it.
I do agree with the thing about like a Dante's Inferno, an Apocalypse Now kind of thing, because it does move forward pretty substantially as opposed to other RPGs that bounce around. Like Dragon Quest, it opens up, is like huge, and then it's you traveling back and forth through existing places that you've already been, trying to finish this quest. Whereas this game is there's a little bit of backtracking, but even if you're backtracking, you're usually still going somewhere you haven't been before. And you're just kind of going forward through escalating issues of people going back and forth, learning what they're all about, which is definitely a very like hero's journey kind of story. So I do agree with that. And I think it's a really cool thing. And this game explores it really well because it is so demonic. So
I think something's like missing here in terms of like the inspiration. And, you know, in that same interview, he says it's hard to tell what inspired some of the designs for the game because a lot of it's just based on his like world experience and everything. And I mean, we're getting this from the artist's perspective. So like, I don't know like how much of this is really, you know, applicable. Yeah, it's definitely not strictly a Dante's Inferno approach where you just get deeper and deeper into hell. I mean, yes, you're deep in like the aspects of like, you know, the hellish aspects of the Vortex world, and you like I agree with you wholeheartedly that like each of these environments, the Mantra headquarters, the Mannequin refuge area, the obelisk, and a lot of these environments prove as they're kind of a proving grounds of sort, and they're almost like, you know, your adventure points and your journey through not hell per se, but just like this apocalypse, this temporary phase before the rebirth. And so there is kind of like a terror to everybody about what happens, which world is going to come, which reason will be born. And you see it in the NPCs like, oh yeah, so are you with Shijima or what? Are you going to go with Musubi? I don't care. You know, like, but you know, deep down, they're all feeling it. They're feeling the pressure of this new world.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that the series always did well, is handle like an eerie, there's like an eerie balance of despair mixed with like, I don't want, maybe ambivalence is the word, but like there should be something really terrifying about talking to a demon about what they're doing on Tuesday. But like like you'll just kind of walk up there like, "Hey, you here for the show?" And it's like this terrifying looking monster and you're just like, "No." And then you move on. And there's some weird balance that this game in this series is really good at striking, where it's like it's kind of creepy and terrifying, but it's also part of your progression and you have to accept it because you're going to, you know, you wield them as your own anyway. But
in what other world are you talking with demons? You know, or game, or like allying with them, or like, you know, like it, because it's crazy because in one aspect you're fighting them, and in the other they're bantering with you.
Yeah, it's like, didn't I just kill
thing
like you a second ago? It's very weird. Yeah. So let's get to the release of this game.
Oh yeah,
officially released on February 20th, 2003.
Japan.
Believe that. Yeah, Japan. The average score in Metacritic is 82 out of 100. Japanese video game magazine Famitsu gave it a score of 36 out of 40, earning the magazine's Platinum Award and becoming the highest ranking review score that week. Okay.
Great job, Nocturne. Game of the week.
You beat Doki Doki's Grand Adventure in Tokyo or something, whatever the hell might have come out that same week. Got a lot of praise, even in America in 2004. It got a lot of praise, which I'm surprised by. 2004 was kind of a big year, so I'm a little bit surprised it's getting things like best RPG, best storyline. One I'm very surprised is it had honorable mentions in things like best storyline and graphics. We can talk about this game's looks in a little bit, but that kind of is a red flag for me. Let's start with the sales. During its first week in Japan, Nocturne sold 185,000 units, which were equal to 75.7% of its shipment, topping sales charts. By the second week, the game had dropped to 7th place in the charts, selling a further 37,000 units. This brought total sales to just over 200 grand. By the end of 2003, it had sold 245, becoming Japan's 49th best-selling game of the year. Its sales by the end of Atlas's 2002-2003 fiscal year had reached 270,000, falling short of their planned sales of 350,000. The Maniacs edition was also popular, reaching 5th place in Japanese sales charts in its first week and remaining in the top 10 for a second week. In an interview with Kaneko, OneUp.com noted that the game had not met with sales equivalent to its high review scores, although no exact figures were given. I don't know. It's just, when I think of like hardcore RPGs, this doesn't seem that high. I think like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, those kind of trump this one.
What were the numbers we were looking at with Dragon Quest in Japan? It was like 2 million or something.
Something like that. I can pull those up real quick.
Sure. I will say, just with regard to the comments about the general praise, I remember reading one about Nocturne where the person said it was like the perfect blend of gameplay and cutscenes. And, I understand like the visual comment, like it's probably not the most impressive game at the time, but I think maybe that's more so with regards to like the actual artwork within the game. I know the overworld, you're not a fan of it, but and even I guess even the environments are not that well detailed, but there is something very appealing about the monster designs. I think we're like entering, or we're in an era where we're still high off the Pokemon and the collect 'em all nature, and it's possible that had some bearing on what people were really into. A lot of this game was determined to be very successful. It's determined as a sort of reason for continuing to get Mega 10 games after this, because it was the first Megami Tensei game. I don't know what they were looking for here in the U.S. I don't see a number for U.S. Sales, but
that's combined.
350,000?
270
okay.
is eventually combined, I believe. Fiscal year 2003?
No. 2003, because that's not true, because the game released in 2004 in America.
Well, I have those numbers. They were very low. Let me get that link.
Oh.
There we go. It sold 0.25 million in Japan, 0.07 million in North America, 0.05 million in Europe, 0.02 million in other.
Wow. So that's not more than 300,000 copies or so.
Well, I guess in total, I guess it did go a little bit beyond, because in total that's 0.38 million. So that would be 380,000.
Do you know which one you're looking at? Because there's 3 versions of this game in Japan.
This one is specific to Nocturne PS2, so it might be the first one.
Well, 3 of them were released on the PS2 in Japan.
Yeah, I don't. This one's specific to that. I can't break that any further. I can look and see if they have one, but
yeah. Still, it's low. Because we looked at Chrono Cross, right?
Well, and I have the Dragon Quest ones for you.
Okay. We'll look at that in a sec. I remember, because we did this recently, that Chrono Cross was 600,000 in Japan and 800,000 in the U.S. And that blows this out of the water.
Yeah, and Dragon Quest 1 was 1.5 million copies. That's on Japan, the NES, when they didn't know what a JRPG was.
Right.
In comparison, so Dragon Quest 7, which was on the 7 on the PlayStation, was 4 million copies.
Wow.
Dragon Quest 8 was, that's weird, 3.7 million, but it also, you can add 1.2 million overseas, so I guess it's better. But even still, like, those numbers are so different. And this is a series that's been going on forever over there. Yeah. I mean, they had a million spin-offs. We went over some of them just in 2003 alone. There were all those different releases. It's so weird that it's like a game. It's like a hardcore game for the hardcore. I don't know.
So the thing is, like, right, like maybe because I would be interested to look at some PS2 numbers, what was Dragon Quest 8 in Japan? I
Dragon
think it would be
Quest,
good reference, right, for like having PlayStation 2.
Dragon Quest
against
8
PlayStation
was
2.
3.7 million in Japan, 1.2 million overseas.
Yeah, so even just in Japan, like this is not 10% of what Dragon Quest 8 did.
I wonder too if it was released because I wanted to, and because we were talking about the graphics, I brought up other games that came out in 2004, and I guess in a way, some of these no because they're American games. Some of these are definitely American games, so
Right.
not a chance in hell. But the other ones maybe. So like games that came out in 2004 include Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which to me visually blows this game out of the water. Half-Life 2, same.
What?
Halo 2, same. Chronicles of Riddick, which I thought was really good looking. Here's one that might have thrown it off, although it's a different category of game, but still it is a Japanese classic. So it'd be Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, did come out in 2004. I wonder if, and this was a stacked year. I wonder if maybe it's a thing of that. It's just not releasing at the right time. Yeah, game of the week. We don't know. And then it fell like 10 points, like 10 things right the week after. Jeez, who knows what happened, man?
I don't know, but I do think it was still very well polished and looked good. If you look at certain things, if you look at character design, if you look at Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the characters look like mud dolls. They don't look well defined.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't. Some looked all right. But the world just looked beautiful. I don't know. We can talk more about this one, but the graphics on this one, I have some. We can talk about that the remake part or something.
Sure.
The release. Now, this one, like you said, did have multiple releases.
Right.
There's an expanded director's cut of the game, Nocturne Maniacs. It was released approximately 1 year after the original version on January 29, 2004 as a limited edition. It was later given a second print run in February that year due to fan demand. The original release in Japan had to have some planned features cut out, so the staff created Maniacs, which included both the cut content and additional features. Among the additional features is an optional dungeon that leads to a sixth ending. The lead character of Capcom's hack-and-slash series Devil May Cry, Dante, appears as a guest character. His inclusion in the game was suggested by a member of the Atlas staff who was a fan of the DMC series. The idea was approved due to how Dante's job as a demon hunter would fit the setting of Nocturne, and thus Atlas created a movie where Dante confronted the game's hero. Capcom was satisfied with this video and allowed Atlas to use the character.
Right. So, and this is all from Wikipedia, by the way. This director's cut is Nocturne. It's the one that was localized, which it mentioned later on. The things that were added in Nocturne, as opposed to the original Japanese release, were the Labyrinth of Amala and the True Demon Ending, which is one that I got. And I don't know if there's... Oh, you get Dante from Devil May Cry, which was a huge selling point for this game.
Can I jump in on the Dante thing?
Share me your revelations. What have you got?
So, I'm curious how many people that bought this game because Dante was in it ever got to play with Dante. It just got ripped off and quit like 10 minutes in. Because I remember it being a big deal and like shown off that you could play as Dante. I remember that like it might have even been on the damn cover that they're like Dante's in this game.
They used the hell out of that, but it doesn't happen until very late in the game.
Very different game than Devil May Cry. I'm just trying to picture people that I know are big Devil May Cry fans. I'm not convinced they would have ever gotten to play as Dante.
No way, unless you used a walkthrough, because I did it with the version that we got, which we'll talk about in a second. And you have to not only take out all the main fiends, you have to find and hunt down all the other ones. And unless you're just really into like going and exploring all areas of the map and just kind of trying to figure it out, there's not really enough tips to figure it out. So, yeah, you're probably right. But at least they get to see him and fight with him in Ikebukuro.
There you go. At least, yeah, he makes a
Also,
cameo.
You can see him in the cutscene after you leave the hospital. I don't know, because I know that you do that in the other version which I'm ready to talk about. Are you?
Yep, let's do it. Talking about the HD one or the
Before
one
we
with
get there,
our other character?
because we're going to talk about that in the HD one, a second version of Maniacs, Shin Megami Tensei 3, Nocturne, Maniacs, Chronicle Edition, was released on October 23rd, 2008 as part of a Japanese limited edition of Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner 2 Raido Kuzunoa vs. King Abaddon.
Ah!
Another long one. In this version, Dante is replaced by Raido Kuzunoa, the protagonist of the third and fourth Devil Summoner title. That's the one that was localized for the remaster.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy they released this many of them.
Well, this like a special edition thing. Dude, when's the last time we got like a special edition game that had another whole game in it? Bayonetta, I guess, maybe, but
yeah, it's pretty rare out here that would ever happen.
Atlas is just really good at tucking the goodies in. You know, with Devil Summoner 2, they had this like awesome Raido Frost plushie that came with it.
That's
super
awesome.
expensive now if you want to get it, but yeah.
It hold on, I got a quote here. For their work on the game translation, the localization team were given access to the source files and Japanese strategy guide, which enabled them to avoid mistaking the genders of Kaneko's often highly androgynous designs.
Who's androgynous in Nocturne?
I will say that at times their face just doesn't necessarily skew. I mean, it kind of all skews feminine. There are a lot of people's faces.
Facial hair,
feel like
very
their design,
clean, but...
yeah, I feel like their design was generally pretty easy to determine.
Yeah.
So
It's weird because in SMT 5, you know, I thought the main character in the first trailer that we saw from like 5 years ago was a girl, and everybody's like, "You're crazy, it's a boy." And then it's gender confirmed as a girl in this one. Maybe I'm getting that completely wrong. In which case, Reddit, forgive me.
According to a later interview, it was said that Atlas had high confidence in the title's overseas release. The later popularity and recognition of the game would result in Atlas attaching the Shin Megami Tensei moniker to later Western releases of Megami Tensei titles to aid in identification and marketing.
Very popular.
They had high confidence in the title's overseas release? Am I crazy? What kind of confidence did they have? Like,
This is cited from Anime Expo 08 Atlas Shin Megami Tensei panel from Destructoid.
I don't see the confidence.
Saturday in the West Hall of the LA Convention Center, Atlas managed to pack a large room to capacity. More than 500 Atlas fans squeezed in to attend the SMT behind-the-scenes panel at Anime Expo 2008. And of course, Persona 3 cosplayers were among those in the crowd. But what does that have to do with Nocturne?
I don't know. I'm just looking at some of these sales numbers. Like, I don't understand how you make that assumption that it's like.
To me, that's like a Wikipedia rewrite.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because those, if I released a game, and I'm a big publisher or whatever, and I get results like 0.05 million copies sold.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not calling that a success. I just don't. Unless they thought it was going to do 0.04 and they somehow got 0.05. I mean, that.
The only quote here about Nocturne says Atlas was very confident in Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, so they chose this as the debut for the series here in the US. Amba said that this was the first Atlas title with a mature rating. I don't know.
Well, we played the HD remaster.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, we're the
What'd
only
you play
ones.
it on?
I played it on Switch.
I played it on PS4.
Yeah, it was announced according to these notes in 2018. Now here's where I got some sticking points. The remaster began in 2018 and lasted around 2 years.
What are you looking at right now?
It's where it says HD remaster.
Yeah, I have 2020. It was announced during the Nintendo Direct Mini.
No, production began in 2018.
Oh, production began in 20. Okay, I got you.
And yeah, it was announced, I guess, in 2020, but released in Japanese traditionally May 25th. Wait, where's the right date? Is it May 25th?
Let me help you out here. So yeah, that's the U.S. release.
Okay, gotcha.
Overseas release in Japanese, Chinese, and Korean was on October 29th, 2020. Does that mean it was released in those regions? I believe so. I'm not sure China and Korea, but I know Japan for sure.
Okay. May 25th, 2021 was when it was released where we could play it. Took them 2 years to port this over. I've got some questions on that one.
Okay.
What took them so long to port this game? I graphically, so I'm of two minds on this one, and we can talk about, I think we have a segment on this later, so I'm just very curious what took them 2 years to pump out this game that they've remade what looks like 3 times now.
Yeah. Look, right, the remaster is a remaster of Maniacs Chronicles Edition, which has Raido Kuzunoa.
Mm-hmm.
So there was entirely new dialogue for those segments. So that had to be translated into English. That's one. 2 is they added voice acting for large number of portions of the game. So, that's 2. And then obviously, like, I'm not a game developer. I don't know what it takes or how long it takes. It could be that part of that was strategic marketing to market alongside SMT5 to boost interest in the series.
That makes sense.
So that's what I would see as possibly rationale for the 3-year time span.
That makes sense. Strategic marketing, that could help. Just get people talking about SMT again.
It certainly doesn't take 3 years to translate Raido's lines and to add voice acting, but I can be understanding. They didn't announce it until 2020. It came out a year later, but this is not a simple port. A lot of it was retextured. The only things that were the cutscenes, which not all of the cutscenes, just like a couple of major cutscenes which remained in 4:3 aspect ratio for old TVs. And there's a question about why didn't they update that to be widescreen on a HD TV. I barely even thought about it. Like it looks like a YouTube video where it's like you're watching the video and then the sides of it are like a stretched out version that's kind of like faded out.
Yeah,
it didn't bother me.
We'll talk.
Should we talk about the remaster? Oh wait.
Yeah, let's wait.
Okay.
Because
let's wait to ask about that.
I think we can roll it
out. That'll be good.
All right, let's talk about the game.
Yeah.
Shin Megami Tensei 3 is from Wikipedia, is a post-apocalyptic role-playing video game developed by Atlas. It was published in Japan and North America by It's the third entry in the Shin Megami Tensei series, the central series in the Megami Tensei franchise. Follows a high school student in modern-day Tokyo who is transformed into the demonic demi-fiend after the world undergoes conception, an apocalyptic event triggered by a sinister cult to trigger the world's rebirth in a new form. With Tokyo transformed into a vortex world filled with demons, the demi-fiend becomes instrumental to the schemes of the Reasons, beings who seek to remake the world in their image, and Lucifer, the Lord of Demons. Let's talk about the protagonist. He's you. Interesting note here. He looks like just like a teenager. He looks like a typical dude, pretty nondescript. But the main protagonist was the first character to be created, being featured in the first alpha build, so as to include a feeling of digitality in the game. The main character was designed as something akin to a human computer. This approach was inspired by the special makeup used in David Cronenberg's 1983 horror film Videodrome. While the protagonist was originally designed with keyboards growing from inside him, thank God they didn't do that, Kaneko felt uncomfortable with that and instead redesigned him with full-body tattoos. The tattoos were intended to convey the character's demon powers, act as an obvious stigma in place of wings or horns, and be a reference to real-world shamans who commonly made themselves stand out using tattoos. The inspiration for the character's design was the American rock band, this comes out of left field, Red Hot Chili Peppers. According to Kaneko, he imagined the main character running around the desert naked. All right.
Very Red Hot Chili Pepper-esque.
Yeah. The main character was initially going to use one of the series' recurring arm-mounted comp computers, but as he had already become a demon hybrid, it did not make sense to include it. As he was the character controlled by the player, more focus was given to embodying and reflecting his worldview than to developing a personality. In keeping with the game's theme of energy remaking reality, Kaneko dressed his character in comfortable shorts to balance against his tattoos. The spike growing from the main character's neck, the Magatama fused with him at the beginning of the game, was inspired by the theory that a person's aura appears as a shark fin sticking out the back of their neck when viewed from the side.
That might explain why, like, one of the first big enemies you fight is Fornius.
Oh, yeah. Because, like,
interesting.
Learning about sea creatures while you become a sea creature.
Right. I don't know. Just a thought. Yeah, okay, so I do want to unpack the plot a little bit, but let's talk about the protagonist for now. He makes special attention. Like, I know the digitality thing is listed. I haven't read too much into that, but I know that Kaneko says that he wanted him to appear shaman or shaman-like. And, you know, the tattoos are a kind of tribal thing. It, like, signifies, like, this kind of, like, connection with God. I guess that kind of, like, maybe ties to the Gnostic viewpoints that had inspired some aspects of this game. To what extent do you feel that the protagonist has this kind of mystic or supernatural quality?
I definitely don't feel the digital stuff. The only way I feel the digital stuff is when he, like, you see the lights on the side, like, of his tattoos. But otherwise, he's entirely, like, a spiritual, like, demon creature to me.
All right. Yeah,
I'm, like, all on the demon side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I think he primarily, in the interview that I read from 1UP, errs towards the side of saying he was inspired to look like a shaman or to be this kind of, you know, supernatural, like, sentient being. And, you know, it's interesting because the side characters throughout the story kind of look to him, side with you, like, to live out your reason. I don't know that I get the sense that he is, like, shaman. To me, a shaman is maybe a bit more defined. This looks like a high school kid with sick tats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Which is more to me like kind of just the blending of, like, styles here. Like, yes, you're going for this religious thing, but then you're also appealing to, like, maybe anime tropes. I don't know.
Yeah, he stands out. Like, those things, like the sharp thing coming out of his neck is certainly weird.
Yeah.
Kind of random, but I guess according to this, it's about a fin sticking out of the back of your neck. Okay.
Yeah.
That's news to me. But I don't know that I like the look. Eventually, in most RPGs, you tend to get used to the character, so it's not like he was ever super distracting. One of the few instances where that doesn't happen with me is Tidus from Final Fantasy X. I just never liked that guy. But this one, yeah, I got used to it. He seemed fine. He doesn't have a lot of emotion, which is typical. I mean, this gets back to, like, the whole silent protagonist discussion that we've had and has been had on other channels, including yours. Is just like what, like, does a character that doesn't speak and often doesn't emote, like, does he give you that? Does he make you feel anything? Because that's really what it is. Whether you like him or you don't like him, does he make you feel something? And to me, I liked him. Because the world around it supported it. So I was fine with him.
you have so much buy-in naturally just by how a Nocturne works, where you are on a aligned path and you cultivate the character that you want to create. Imaginably, like perhaps this is D&D inspired. I don't have much experience with Dungeons and Dragons, so maybe you could speak to this, where you are directly affecting the outcome of the character. So I know your options are limited. You have 6 in the official version of the game, but they all are so distinct that I still like seeing how it unfolds.
Yeah, I think he's a great character for what he is. One thing that I loved about this game. It's a personal thing, and it kind of affects the other characters. I mean, it does affect the other characters a lot more than this one. But the David Cronenberg thing, one thing that I thought of when I was playing this game was body horror. This game has a ton of it in it. You'll see characters just morph into these other creatures.
Yeah.
But the essence of their character is still there. And you can just see like their face on some weird grotesque monster. That sort of thing is so powerful to me. I love it. So any instance where that happens a lot in this game, like where people's like arms grow out, and the one dude at the end, he's like a manatee or something, or like a whale. I couldn't tell what exactly.
Oh my god, yeah.
But his face is just like pushing out of this like gray thing.
And that's like mid combat too. Like it happens like in the last phase of the battle.
Oh my god, that sort of stuff is so cool to me. I love seeing people with creative things like that. And he,
go ahead.
Your main character is a representation. It's not as profound as some of the other ones, but it still has elements of that. And so I appreciate it.
The sequence where you transform in this game, do you know what I think it was inspired by?
What's that?
Matrix.
Oh.
They take that little Lucifer with the lamp head lady, takes that little spider Magatama and drips into your mouth, and that's the only scene where you're looking through the character's eyes, and then everything goes fuzzy.
Oh, that would make sense.
I got major Matrix vibes out of that.
And that aligns like timeline wise, because Matrix was like 99, and this was being developed in 2000. That would make a lot of, or maybe it was 2000. I don't remember, but that is like perfect. Damn.
So a lot of cinematic, awareness, and I think I didn't see too many citations for the inspirations for like the movie tie-ins or anything, but like you can see it when you play the game that this is a very conscious effort.
Oh yeah, whatever your thoughts are in the graphics of the game, I have my opinions of yours, but the designs of things is phenomenal. These guys are. Whoever that art guy is that speaks for everybody, he does have he does have a great vision for the game. So I certainly give him props for that, because I love that stuff. I'm like cheering on my seat, like standing on it when that stuff happens. I just adore it. I want to talk about the other characters, but let's weave the story in while we do it, because they kind of represent story points.
Have them all up, and we can unpack the plot as we go. The main character is the Demi-Fiend, who you name. It's you, or whoever you want it to be. You have the high school friends, Chiaki Tachibana and Isamu Nita. You have Hikawa, who is the head of cyber corporations. And one thing you find out if you do the True Demon ending is you'll find out through cutscenes that he is also a major member of the cult of Gaia. You have Yuko Takao, who is your high school teacher, who invites you and your other high school friends to the hospital site to meet with her, supposedly talk about something, I don't know what it is, like extra credit or something. Yeah, you have...
Seems like a good idea.
In the hospital, you have one other pair of people who we should acknowledge is the young boy and old woman, and they signify, spoiler alert, I guess, if you're listening and you've made it this far, you haven't played the game, Satan, and I guess is Becky. There are some other side characters I'll just name them for reference. Joji Hijiri, who also is in the hospital. And he's a photographer who's kind of just like playing the field and seeing what's happening. He gives you this kind of cultist magazine at the beginning. You have Futo Mimi, who we'll talk about in a bit, and Sakahagi. And let's go from there.
Yes, and why they kind of tie into the story is that they all kind of represent their own view of the world, and many of them tie into a reason that they're chasing throughout this story, and it's up to you to decide who to side with and who to assist, I guess, even though you kind of shit on all of them anyway. But
yeah. So Hikawa is kind of like the primary culprit in bringing this out. What he's doing, because he was a member of the Ring of Gaia, or the Cult of Gaia, is he learned an ancient prophecy called the Scripture of Miroku. You may have heard that tossed around in the game. If you go into the Amala Labyrinth, you can learn a bit more about it. And essentially, it was an ancient prophecy that was forbidden for summoning Kagutsushi to bring about a new world in your vision, almost to become your own god, in a sense. And they found out Hikawa was doing this, and they tried to persecute him. And hence, you have a bloodbath at the hospital, or at the Yoyogi Park in the very beginning of the game. And, that's why you have the photographer trying to figure out what's going on. And also, everybody around in the overworld's talking about it. Oh, did you hear what happened? Oh, no. Do you think Hikawa's hot? Yeah, kind of. They're all saying like funny stuff. But essentially, it was the grounds for a cultist attack, and you meet up at the hospital, and when you go to the hospital, what are some of the things that you remembered? Like just setting, details, etc.
God, it's been forever now.
I'll help you out if you want.
I just remember it being just like weird that I didn't fully understand the teacher thing. It's like, you're going to go see your teacher at the hospital. Is she hurt? Yes. No? Like, oh, okay. That's where we're choosing to meet? I have other questions. And then my friends are there. Like, is the hospital like a hangout for everybody? Because there's a photographer there. They're all just like, we all converge there for some reason. I thought that was weird. But I did like exploring Tokyo and like, oh, cool, it's like a city, even though I don't like the overworld map. But, that aside, it's, you get to explore and look around it. Especially, it's fun to think about that and then know that, like, later on I'll be traversing the quote-unquote same place, but it's all in shambles.
Yeah. So, missed it the first playthrough, too. I didn't really understand. I was just going with the motions. Like, okay, I'm going to play the game. Jiri gives you a magazine. Do you remember it?
Yeah. Well, I remember he gave me a magazine.
It was a cultist magazine about Cult of Gaia, and it mentions the hospital as being one location that was used for cultist practices. And he gives it to you. You don't look through it. You just get it. And when you go in the hospital, you give it to Chiaki, and she's like, "What is this? You're reading this?" You give it to her. You go search for a teacher, or Isamu. I don't remember exactly. And when you come back down, she's like really into this magazine. So what you learn, and also the other thing that was fascinating about the hospital is like, the thing is barren. There's nobody there. There's nobody working. There's no nurses. Nobody,
That's true, but I took that as one thing that they always do, because a lot of these games with SMT, they're very barren, just by design. So I almost, having played other games in this series, I almost just took that for granted. And was just like, it's empty. They just didn't want to put the people in there.
They also had like posters up and stuff that like were like, or like I don't know if you remember the basement. There's like a hospital bed where there's like a cultist ring. It kind of looks like the star and the circle. I don't remember exactly what that is. But like where you can see there's some kind of experimentation going on. Mm-hmm. Eventually, when you go in the basement, Ikawa is using that Amala drum. Do you remember the drum where you do your saving? And sometimes it'll like create like a cutscene and it'll like start flashing every time you teleport somewhere. The Amala network.
Yeah.
He has the Amala drum, and it's he's spinning it and he's threatening you because he's saying, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." And he says, "You know what? You're going to get in the way of my plans. I'm going to eliminate you." And then he summons Ose, the tiger demon, right behind him to take you out. And just before he does that, your teacher steps in and says, "Stop." what are you doing? I can't let you do this. And he's like, you're going to get in the way of my plans, but fine, it's you. And, so just so be it. And so you're a threat to Hikawa's plans of bringing on this world of silence. He had gone out of his way to try and create the world in his image, what he wanted, a world of silence. Teacher's a part of that. She brings you to the roof and she's like, we're going to see this through. She doesn't know exactly what she's signing up for, but then you go to the top and you watch it.
Okay, so she's part of the cult then.
Yeah, well, she's part of his vision, but I don't think she fully gets what she's into.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
What are your thoughts on all of these persons and their philosophies coming into the game?
I don't know. It seemed kind of random to me. Maybe they'd hinted at it and I just wasn't catching it. Like you think like if somebody's vision of the world is like they value strength over stuff, like over anything else, value power, then I would have, and maybe this is too on the nose, but it'd be like, I almost think it'd be like the football player that would be like, yeah, like, I don't know what you're doing, like, hanging out with these losers. You should just be working out and getting stronger. But I just don't feel like they really telegraphed their thoughts that much. Maybe they did, and I just missed it. It's possible. You played it a second time, so maybe you caught on things that I didn't. But
I agree with you because, I think if you look at the, Kaneko's comments about like, it's a journey of character growth as you go. Some are defined and some are not. Isamu and Chiaki come into the new world after the conception having no vision for their reason. They don't even know what they're doing there. They don't even know why they're at the hospital. It's okay that they don't have that fleshed out. I almost prefer that explicitly stating, "Oh, I'm the tough guy. I want a world where the strong survive." Or Isamu being like, "Yeah, dude, I just wish everything was cool." I'm doing a Malta Master impression, but what up, Malta? But I prefer this kind of like this flexibility to the characters, and that they don't have to be, this kind of like rigid platform, and that's so predictable.
Yeah, but to me, it lacks character growth if they don't have something. Like,
but they do because
go ahead.
Chiaki, she's obsessed with this magazine. Once you give it to her, she cannot put it down. Samu doesn't even care that he's in the building. Like, he's just like, oh, whatever. And you can see him. There's a cutscene where you see him across the hall. And he's just walking. He goes in a room, and then you find him. He's like, hey, man. And, like, he's like, I'm not going to go into the basement. You go. And Chiaki calls him out. Like, what are you, scared? So, like, it's these little subtle comments that I think give us insight into the characters, and that, you don't know somebody from one conversation with them. The growing thing. And you have multiple scenes throughout the game before they even present a reason to you where you get insights into them and what they're all about.
I think I would have liked more time with these people. And it doesn't even have to be like before the thing. It could have been after. Like they could have been like around more when you're when you're beginning and throughout, the first half. Maybe that's what I want is them to just show up more and, give me more of their characters so I can understand what they're eventually, like, what the end game is for them and how that progresses. Because I would say with thought it was just random. Like I didn't
say with each of them though that like you get maybe four scenes before they come up with their reason. Like Chiaki is like, she's in the disco club in Shinjuku. She tags along to Ikebukuro. She sees the Gozu Tenno statue. There's a point where she tries fighting Sakahagi, and she gets massacred, and that's why she goes to Gozu Tenno. So a lot of this, like, even though it's sparse, it's barren. There's not as many times with them as you might see in other games. It's not like they're party members. Mm-hmm. You do get a sense of what they are working towards. And the other thing is, gosh, I'm blanking on it a little bit. They're human. They come into the world in the conception as human. They cannot survive against these demons. They cannot be party members because you are a demi-fiend, and so they look up to you. So they see you and they're like, I need to do something to be on his level right now. Otherwise, this world is going to change and I don't know what's going to happen and I need my control over it.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree that maybe there was more opportunity to introduce those things. I would not want this game to get carried away with exposition in terms of like a Persona game.
Yeah, that would be an extreme. I appreciate the game for its subtlety, and I don't want to take that away. I just feel like there's something missing with making that connection.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right. It's sparse. You probably like I probably have more attachment to my demons than I do to them. Whether you see that as a pitfall of the game or a luck or something to enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
it's subtle.
Let's throw another wrench into this story because we have the Mannequins.
Holy shit!
The Mannequins were created as a representation of the Vortex world and the war between the reasons, acting as a mass pressuring for the birth of a new world. They mirrored the mechanisms of a country with a high population and were based on the idea of people being overwhelmed by numbers and acting in accordance with a common norm. Don't really know what that means, but the Mannequins were these like, were they made of like mud or something? They're like these, because I remember coming out of this little farm area and there's just these piles of them. They're made out of mud, but they've gained sentience, and so they're walking around and like they have towns and they travel together, and they're basically, it's almost as like a Blade Runner like classic story of the robots that, are they living or are they not? And it goes actually a little deeper than that, which is kind of cool. But
do androids dream of electric sheep?
Yeah. So it's definitely a surprise seeing them and how important they are to the story. What's your take on the Mannequins?
God, man, I probably don't have the deepest analysis of this, but my God, are they fascinating. At first, the first time I saw them, I'm like, what the fuck is the thing doing? Like, just, jiggling all over the place every second I was talking to it. There's some religious theme going on here, this idea of creating beings in our likeness, because they're modeled after humans. They are mud dolls that are created to look like humans with the wills of humans. And it almost is like the replenishing of the earth after the conception with said humanity. Like, to me, they may represent humanity in this never-ending drive to find a reason. And then the travesty is, by the end, they can't have one. Every other person here that comes in has a reason. They can have a reason. But the things that look like humans can't. You know what one of the very interesting throwbacks in here to the Mannequins, or this kind of allusion to them, is? When you're in the shopping mall in Shibuya, it's Shibuya or Shinjuku, it's one of them. It's a broken down shopping mall, and in the windows are mannequins. Not the creatures, but like an actual mannequin doll.
Yeah.
So no matter what, they're all there. They're around you, but they're being molded in the likeness of whoever is creating this world. There's something deeper there. I don't quite have it. But there's also, I found this out because of the ending I went for and the extra context and narrative that you get. Do you want to know who else is a mannequin?
Yeah.
Jiri, photographer.
He's a mannequin?
He's a mannequin. He is a mannequin that does not belong in Vortex world. He was supposed to have died along with everybody else. Since he survived, to live a life as a mannequin documenting the creations of the new world.
Wait, but does that mean that mannequins were around before the conception? Because wasn't he there? Yeah, he was there at the hospital.
Right, but remember, the hospital is the saving grounds. It's the only protected site from the conception. It's the area of the cult practice.
But I was under the assumption that mannequins were created after the conception.
I mean, is everything just created at once? Because you have like a child mannequin and a grown adult mannequin.
I had so many questions on that one.
I don't know.
Like, how does the bud grow? I don't know.
But it's really fascinating, and that his whole saga, his whole arc, leads to more questions because at one point I think the funny thing about the Mannequins is they travel alongside you, almost following you. They're in the Ginza underpass. Then you see them in Ikebukuro, and sometimes you'll come into a fight with them, and they don't even know what to do. I don't know if you got any fights with Mannequins along your journey.
Yeah.
Just pop up and you can attack them and they collapse. They're there in the Tower of Kagetsuchi by the very end in their very own little area, climbing the top of the tower in an attempt to make a reason. One of them says, I did it. I made it this far, but I got one problem. I don't know what my reason is.
So
they're almost this kind of tragic comedy.
Yeah.
And there's more to Hijiri's bit. I don't quite know what it is, but he's got his own tragedy. You have to sacrifice him, or not. Isamu will do it in his arc.
I wonder if the Mannequins are like the game's very depressing, almost pessimistic view of humanity. Just not having a reason anymore. Just like overpopulated. These like everyone's the same. Mud doll, whatever we are, it's the same. Their opinion is the same thing, and then they need to be. Not need to be eradicated, but they'll never be the thing that advances humanity or advances living whatever the next living creature is, because they're so blech and bland and they don't think that much. And so one of these big reasons, whether it's we got a couple here, I want to make sure I get them right. Like maintaining power, or the reason of individuality, or one of these things that actually mean something. They'll never get that because humanity just doesn't have anything like that. Maybe that's their just really depressingly pessimistic view of us.
Yeah, it's their desperate hunt for purpose.
Yeah,
you need to have a meaning. They don't know what it is. If you ask somebody what's the meaning of life, how could they answer it?
Probably not.
Probably not. And to me, that's what I almost see the Mannequins' plight as. And so to me, they are like the underdog here. I love them. I grew such an appreciation for them. I love the comments. When you're in the underpass, the little kid asks you, "Do you know who Gojo Tenno is?" You can say yes or no. You say yes, like you're cool. You say no, he's like, you're lame. But it's just like these little comments, and they're very diverse. Among the Mannequins, you got like the collector mannequin, who's kind of like this. He's probably the real comic character of this thing. You enter his shop and they're playing like this theme. It's called Playing the Fool.
Oh, that's funny.
So it's almost like Shakespearean in a sense. They are the fool character in a play.
There are two Mannequins that we should also look at. Fudo Mimi. He's the leader of the Mannequins. I think that's the one I killed, and I felt really bad about doing. I was like, I'm sorry. I just made this decision a while ago, and I'm like sticking to it.
Yeah.
And then Sakahaji is the violent mannequin who skins his own kind to make clothing for himself. He has a dream to become king of the demons.
What beautiful socio-political commentary.
Yeah.
This idea of humans can rise up and be taken down, or to get ahead and to get this immense power, you have to kill your own.
And to get
I wonder
what? Because it doesn't get you anything.
Right. Right. He has a dream to become king of the demons, Sakahagi.
But he can't, right? We find out later that he can't. He wouldn't have been able to, and if he didn't,
right,
it would have been for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so depressing.
So I don't know. That's my read on it, but I think each one of these, these guys especially, but Hijiri is also fascinating too, because he's doomed to this eternal life of not even realizing that he is a mannequin in this world, still performing his purpose. So it's so deep. It's so deep. It's so cool. You write a book on this.
All right. I don't know. Do you want to take it to the end of the story? I mean, we kind of danced around the story. We have a pretty good beat on it. Is there anything more you want to say to that, or even take it to the end? Or
let's save that for when we talk about the reasons specifically.
Gotcha.
The endings.
Because now we're getting deep into gameplay territory.
Whoop.
We talked a little bit about dungeon crawling. It's about 3/4 dungeon crawler, 1/4 Final Fantasy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Agree to that.
We talked about that enough. We do have...
The thing is, like, I would call this more a monster tamer. A la Pokemon. As opposed to a dungeon crawler. It's probably both.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it.
The thing is, it's not only taming monsters because you fight alongside them. In Pokemon, Ash doesn't fight, right? Mm-hmm. But in this one, it's like you party up with them, and it's important to keep that system going of, demons.
I guess I never considered Monster Tamer as a class of game. I know Pokemon, okay. I guess it is a class of game, but it feels like that's like their thing. But maybe Digimon, that was a game, I think. I played a little bit of it, played like Persona. But yeah, whatever you want to call it. But let's talk about that side of it, though, the demons. There's a lot going on here, and we've luckily never gotten to talk much about it because this is our first one, so let's just hit it. Summoning, recruiting, fusing, sacrificing, evolving. Let's talk about them demons.
I think we should talk about specifically how it works in Nocturne, because it's very different in Persona than it is in Mega 10. And even within this game, there will be differences between this and what you see in 4.
Yeah. Let's ignore summoning for the moment, because that's kind of not as big.
Let's start at the beginning, right? So, like, in the beginning of the game, it's just you fighting. Eventually, Pixie will talk to you and be like, hey, you're cool, because, can you go get this key? And then, like, you join her, and she joins you, rather. And then from there, she tells you a little bit, like, by the way, you can talk to demons. Try and get some on your party. So the first aspect of the demons is negotiating with them to join your party. Mm-hmm. What can you say about demon negotiation?
Oh, God, I'm of two minds on it. People that aren't used to this kind of thing are going to hate it. It's basically an effort of futility. You can do everything quote unquote right. They're going to ask you for things. They're going to ask you for your own health. They're going to ask you for money. You can do all of those, and they can say fuck off and not do anything, have anything to do with you.
Just hitting the balls right there. Yeah.
Especially at the lower levels, it's like, I gave you everything that I had.
Yeah,
but, well, it's not statistically great, but it is gameplay and story-wise great. So yes. I two minds on it. I could see people that are new to the series really hating that.
Yeah, for sure. It's not throwing a Pokeball. No. It's not luck-based. It's not like damage them and then, like enough and then you'll have a higher chance. No, your best bet is really to like stock up on money, life stones, and not even just by buying them. You'll get them naturally throughout the game. Maybe you might want chakra drops later in the game. But I think having a comfortable amount that you can part with. I think early on it's a little bit easier, but I definitely had a hard time the first playthrough where I wasn't getting a lot of success rates. I think some things to keep in mind is if there's an item you don't want to get rid of for a demon, don't get rid of it. Another thing is it's helpful to know what the demon's level is, because you could go through all that negotiation and then they're too high level for you and they'll say, I can't join your team. So that's 2. And then the other thing is like, we'll talk about the Demon Compendium in a bit. But just, be comfortable with failure. Mm-hmm. And also understanding the mechanics. In this game, you cannot negotiate with a demon if there's other demons on the battlefield. So you have to take out all but one. Mm-hmm. So, there's like many rules to it and obstacles. You can't do it on a full Kagetsushi when the moon is full. It's 8 out of 8. It's not the moon. Kagetsushi is kind of different, but I kept calling it the moon in my playthrough. As long as you like understand those things, this is actually easier than an SMT4. When I played SMT4, you would have to go through question after question after question with these things. And sometimes yes, sometimes no. This one, it's like sometimes you might even get lucky. You just give a few items, and then they're like, "Okay, I'll join you." This one, and you maybe it asks you one philosophical question: Is life really worth living? Are demons going to be okay? And
Yeah.
then depending on your answer, they'll say yes or no. It's just a two-choice answer, and they'll ask you the one, and then it's one and done. So as long as you get to that point, you'll be okay. Experiment, fail, learn what works, learn what doesn't, and also try and predict what it is they want to hear based on what type of demon they are. If you're fighting an angel, it probably wants to hear something aligned with what an answer aligned with order and not chaos is. Is life futile? They'll probably won't want to hear that.
One thing I had success with too was, and it's sort of counterintuitive, but if you're like me and you tend to farm a lot, it works. Is if you're a decent chunk higher level than they are, sometimes they'll just ask you to join anyway, and you can sort of skip the rabble.
Happen often is the problem. So like you can't rely on that as a method. But if you're just slaughtering demons, eventually they'll be like, no, wait, I'll spare me. I'll join you or something.
But and at that point, you're not really expecting to use that demon for combat. You're going to use them for the next part we're going to talk about. Look at that segue. Do you believe that?
Demon Fusion.
I love Demon Fusion. Unfortunately, in this game, it's the oldest. I don't know if it's the oldest method, but it's certainly... They've gone a little further with the series and doing like triple splits and a couple other different creative ways. So it's more just fusing one and the other, and that's it. What did you find anything more out of this than that?
There are certain rules to Demon Fusion. So the way it works is if you fuse two demons together, then, and there's some that you can't, like for some reason, like it's like a slime or something. Interestingly enough, slime is not that cute in this game. It's a Dragon Quest, but sometimes they have restrictions, but very rarely, so it's not something you have to worry about so much. But if you fuse those two demons, the resulting demon will be the lowest common denominator for that demon that it will produce. So like you fuse, like let's say a beast and a Megami, and it could create what's another one? Like another type, like I can't think of, let's just, a lady, right? Let's say that creates a lady. It will create the lowest common denominator of lady demons that exist within the game. So let's say there's 5 lady demons, and you fuse like a level 10 Megami and a level 5, what was I saying?
Beast,
level 5 beast. And the lowest common denominator lady in the middle is 12, then you're going to get a level 12 lady demon. And so sometimes you can level up demons that way, and you can get like interesting combinations. You could do like a level 80 thing and a level 3 thing, and it's not necessarily just going to average it out. It's going to go one above the average. So that's an interesting kind of science to how you fuse. Another thing that's important here is that your skills will pass on. And it depends on how high you've leveled up the demons in your party, the number of skills that pass along. So they have 2 or 3 that are inherent that start with the demon. Then, if you've leveled up your demons to max capacity, you can get 8 skills on them. And you can make some really boss demons that are going to, power you through the game if you really exploit that and grind and level up your demons accordingly. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. I love the part where you can give them the extra skills that they wouldn't have already had. I'm a sucker for passive skills, so I like to give people like, especially like resistances to stuff. That makes them such freaking beasts. But I also heard that there were like rare instances where you could do it if you fused at like a certain Kagetsuchi.
Yes.
Isn't there's like a weird one with that, right? Like I never did it.
Okay,
but
it's like a misfire. So if you do the sacrifices on a full Kagetsuchi, or I think even if you just fuse a full Kagetsuchi, I might be mistaken there. Sometimes a resulting demon would not be what you wanted it to be. It'll just be a random ass demon.
Oh damn!
And that could work to your benefit or to your detriment. So save often.
Yeah, save, which it kind of works out, but yeah, just save right before you ever do that, which they're always next to a save point, so it works.
Let's talk about the sacrificing. Sacrificing is where you can offer up a third demon for fusion, and the reason that you would do that is, one, it's going to give any extra levels that you have on that demon. Like, say it was like a level 13 pixie, and you leveled it up to level 19. Now the resulting demon will get 6 extra levels added to it. So instead of getting like a level 22 or level 12 lady, you're gonna, because you sacrificed level 19 pixie, you're now gonna have a level 18 lady.
Dude,
so
I
had
did that.
skills. You should have done that, because I had skills on some demons that, like, watchful gives them XP outside of battle. I had 40 levels on these things.
God damn.
So I sacrificed my level 64 Daiso Joe, and I made a frickin' level 60 Baihu Tiger.
Damn.
The attack all, a skill that allows it to attack every enemy on the screen with a regular ass physical attack.
Holy
That's one.
shit.
The other thing is the skills that the sacrifice demon has can be transmitted to the fused demon. So if you like the fiends, for instance, they're like these super powered demons like that. You know, story wise, they have some relevance to the Lucifer plot, but they have some killer spells. Prayer, full restoration, and so status ailment relief.
Yeah.
You can pass that on. Attack all from the motorcycle guy attacks every enemy on screen with the physical attack. That could be passed on. A bunch of that, like, just there were some really, like, this is the ultimate test in customization and experience with it, because you can customize so much. You can customize how the demon turns out. You can customize, if you know their strengths and weaknesses, what resistances they have, if you have that skill, null fire, drain ice, these kind of things. And so you can build like the ultimate party here. If you like Pokemon, you'll love mechanics in Demon Fusion, if you get to that point.
Well, that's what I tell people about this game, is that, I mean, it's Pokemon. It's better than Pokemon. It's like everything Pokemon wishes it was, but it's like Pokemon on hardcore juice. It's like, it's awesome.
With the exception of possibly negotiations, depending on your preference.
Yeah. But I mean,
can be frustrating, but yeah. So you may be like, okay, I want to fuse these, but I don't want to get rid of Mizuchi, my snake demon. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. Like, what's the demon you liked?
There's. I mean, I have an endgame one, Scotty. That was like my favorite.
Oh yeah. She's like has a black hat and she's like in a prayer. See, yeah. Scotty. So you might not want to get rid of Scotty, right? Fortunately for you, you can go to the Demon Compendium and summon her back, and you can also register her with all the skills that you had on her. But if you get rid of her in Fusion, you can just bring her right back. I had one, Shiki Oji or something, Shuki Oji, and he was like paper thin, but he was null physical, null light, null dark. He was weak to fire, but I had null fire on him, so he was just resistant to everything. It's incredible.
That's awesome.
And I would fuse him, but I could just bring him back.
Yeah.
And my next playthrough, like Albion was incredible. He would drain physical attacks. I don't know if you remember him. He's this kind of gelatinous creature. He actually evolves, which we're going to talk about next, evolution. Some demons will evolve. Did you have that happen to you at all?
Yeah. In fact, Scotty was an evolution of some other lady that had an S as her name. I can't remember, but yeah, I loved that. I wish it happened more often, honestly.
Yeah.
But it was it's always exciting when it happened. And I think there was like some weird like thing that was mentioned in the game, like, are you sure you want it to do it? I'm like,
signs
why would
of
I say
this can
no?
be seen. Yeah. Well,
I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah. Ultimately, every evolution ends up being better than the previous iteration, usually because of resistances, but also stats and stuff. Some of my favorites, I got Gog Magog is this kind of like transparent green dude who doesn't take physical attacks. You might have seen him in the Amala temples. He evolves into Albion, who I was saying is like the big yellow dude. And anyways, another one is Pixie. In the very beginning of the game, turns into High Pixie. But if you're level 58, she turns into Queen Mab.
Queen Mab? How funny.
Queen Mab. And it doesn't matter what level Hypixie was at when she evolves, she turns to a level 58 High Mab.
Oh shit.
At this, if you bring that same Hypixie that you got at the very beginning of the game, whatever evolution it was, to the fifth Kalpa in the Labyrinth of Amala, you can turn her into a level 80 Uber Pixie.
Damn.
So I didn't do that. I've thought about it, and I still have Queen Mab in my party, but there are some real like opportunities here for some crazy evolutions, and even just fusions and summons, etc.
Holy shit, that's so cool. Yeah, I love that system. That's one of my favorite things about these games. Maybe my favorite thing about these games. And I like how with getting, they're added to your compendium, they really encourage you to just experiment and play around with it, because nothing's permanent. You can just sacrifice it and then see what happens, and then I'll just bring them back. And it costs money, but money isn't that big of a deal in this game. It comes and goes.
Yeah. To be honest, I barely spent it on items. The only things you can make your decisions. The other thing I think we should talk about in terms of gameplay here is the Magatama system.
We have that slated for combat, but I'm cool to move it to gameplay.
You can kind of like combine these two. Do you want to start transitioning over?
Yeah. Well, do you want to hit Puzzle Boy before we?
I don't have much for it. I liked Puzzle Boy. It was super cool. When I saw that there was an arcade game within the game, like I was like super impressed, and I spent 4 hours that day playing Puzzle Boy.
Is there any way to play that outside of the game, like on a menu or something? Because I'd love to play it. I just don't want to bother doing all the going back and getting there.
Okay, so Puzzle Boy is an opportunity to get a Magatama in the game, but it's like a full-on arcade game where you play as Jack Frost, and there's like 20 puzzle levels. I'm reading here. Quirk, known in Japan as Puzzle Boy, is a puzzle video game developed and published by Atlas in Japan on November 24th, 1989 for the, let's see if I can get it here, for the Game Boy, spelled KWIRK. The game was later published in March 1990 by Acclaim Entertainment. I don't know if this is the same thing. I'd have to see it. So maybe if you want to boot up Quirk on the Game Boy, I don't know. We'd have to look at some gameplay. I don't know if you're interested in that.
I have seen a couple pictures here. It definitely, well, it has blocks. That might be
Puzzle Boy works in this game is like you tilt axes so that you can get to the end goal, and there's like a bunch of levels. I just thought it was like just the coolest throw-in tie-in to the game.
Oh, I was into it too. I got frustrated on one of the levels, so I jumped out. But I was on it for at least an hour. It's very fun. So I wish that you could, like, once you accessed it there, you could just play it on the main menu, because I would totally try to finish it.
Oh, hell yeah. That would have been like an awesome remaster edition or something. I don't know.
Anyway.
The one thing that did suck was if you're playing it in the game, you have to do it all in one sitting, and there's like 20 levels, and it was a lot. But real mind benders or busters or something. Yeah.
It was super fun. All right, let's talk about the combat. This one is the first to introduce the press turn system. This is
the first.
The other ones didn't have that. It was more of just a classic turn-based game. This one has where each party member, so each demon / whatever you are, gets one turn in combat, and depending on if you hit a strength or weakness, you'll get another opportunity to attack. And you can see it in those 4 symbols at the top. Apparently at the beginning it was actually a bar, and it would just be reduced, and then go up depending on what you do. But they decided to turn it into a more simple system with just symbols, which I think makes sense.
The other option is to pass. If you pass your turn, you get an extra turn as well.
Yeah. So this is pretty revolutionary, and it's pretty much been used for every SMT game since, including Persona. So, well, I guess, let me think. I guess I can't speak to Persona on the PS1. I don't know if those games use it. I've never actually played them, which sucks. I should probably do that. but
you said that it's not introduced until this game.
For SMT.
Okay.
Now I don't know. I can't speak to those other ones, but for the SMT series, this was the first one to use it. I'm assuming it started here because they talked a lot about that, but I don't know that for sure.
Do you remember Persona 4 at all? I don't remember it too well.
Yeah, it had it, but again, this is before that.
Yeah. I was just curious because that might have been a time signifier. So it ties into knowing your demons and knowing their weaknesses and knowing their strengths and kind of predicting them. And the major types in this game, tell me if I miss one, are physical attacks, fire, ice, force, lightning, light, and dark. Does it sound like I missed anything?
Well, I think you got them. You can also do like the status effects count.
Oh yeah, nerve, curse, and mind.
Yeah. So
and there are physical attacks attached to like mind, but there's like I only saw one or two.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just status.
And that ties into the weaknesses and strengths. This is one of those things that another thing where this game shows its age. You'll see this in more modern incarnations where the game will keep a record if you've used one before. Like if you've hit Demon A with ice and it reacted like it was a weakness to that. A lot of times in the newer games, they'll actually have a visual indicator that tells you, oh, by the way, this one's weak to ice because you've used it before.
Is that showing its age or that showing its challenge?
That's what I kind of wanted to talk about. Is I could see that being off-putting to newer players or even players that were like used to the new stuff and just going back. This is hard. I kind of liked it because it kind of reminded me, and it's weird that I'm bringing this up again, but it kind of reminded me of The Witcher, where you have to like study things and you kind of have to know, and the game just encourages you to know everything you possibly can about your enemy. And it made me feel like a freaking hunter, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy will not handle ice, so we need to save our ice spell for him. This guy is going to be weak against physical attacks, but we can't use a group ice attack because he blocks that. So you have to plan your strategy accordingly. I don't know which one I prefer. One of them is a lot easier to autopilot, I'll say that. But when you do like on 3, you really have to go into each combat encounter and think because it doesn't do the thinking for you.
Oh yeah, it's a very intuitive experience, and I think that's part of what makes me get really lost in the series to begin with. Lost in a good way. Like I really like just find myself getting submerged into it and losing track of the hours, and before I know it, I've done 2 playthroughs. But I think it's really like it's a evolving experience because like you're going through the game, and just as you're starting to get used to one area and what demons you're seeing, you go to the next and it's completely different demons. And so you might have been used to really hammering physical attacks and using a physical build, and then all of a sudden you're on auto attack, and suddenly that attack comes back at you and you lose all your turns. Like it completely is mind bending, and it makes you rethink your strategy as you're going into certain boss battles. Like you may get crushed by a boss and suddenly you game over and you go back to your save state. You're like, okay, what were they weak to? What what did it resist? Can I use that? Is my demon still viable? And you might need to restructure your whole team going into that. People might not like that because maybe they have their demon attachments. Maybe, they wanted to use this one, but now they need to reconsider the strategy. But I think it's very clever and keeps the formula spicy, especially when in consideration with the Magatama system.
Yeah, it makes me think about, and this will be just an endless question that we don't have to answer here, but it's at what point does quality of life actually impede on the game? Like we want quality of life to an extent, but I don't know that I want a game to hold my hand per se. And it just I don't know that we're going to answer it here, but that's like the deeper question there is, do I prefer it where it tells me what the weaknesses are, because technically I should know because I already used it?
Yeah.
Or do I want it to keep me reminding me, or me to keep reminding myself and trying to figure it out every time. Because if I were a freaking loser, I could just write it down in a notebook. But, tough question. I don't know. I just don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think modern Pokemon does this. They still make you try and figure out what the Pokemon's types are, but it's pretty obvious. You know this is a bird because it's fucking flying.
Do you remember Sword and Shield? They told you what the weaknesses were. Like they had they had the characters yelling at you. That is bad.
Terrible.
That is bad. I'll put that as like tag mark for definitively awful.
Jeez.
But it's also for kids, but still.
Yeah, but still, like, I mean, the first Pokemon was for kids too. But part of the thrill was that hunt, like figuring out, like, you know, what moves are going to be good against this.
I think Pokemon is the perfect representation of that fine balance that we're talking about here. Of when does quality of life go too far? And you can really just name a generation of Pokemon where you think they jumped the shark. Of like, because like it starts out like a hardcore RPG. Like it doesn't really fuck around at the end of the first one, and then it like to now where they're just like, oh, use the fire one. It's good against ice or good against water or whatever.
You can ride your bike on water.
Yeah. So like it's to me, I mean, I have my opinions, but we can go on that in the button mappers and talk about that more. But to me, that's a perfect way to look at it is when do these quality of life improvements actually make the game worse? And
I don't know that it does in 4 because you still have to figure it out for the first time. That's when they started introducing it in the Mega 10 series was you would see, okay, you know, ice will work on this, physical won't. You can also, there's a skill called Analyze that you can put on your demons. In fact, some of the early ones have it. Mm-hmm. You can look at their weaknesses. It actually doesn't work for bosses, so you still have to figure that out on your own.
I tried.
Oh, dude, there's one boss that it really would have helped for. You know which one I'm thinking of?
The lightning one?
Not. That little guy in like the pyramid or like the coffin that would like pop his hand out.
Oh my god.
Weak to one thing. I didn't have it. I didn't have it on my first playthrough. So I used only almighty spells and drain attacks or drain health or something, which was already 90% weak. But long battle.
Jeez. All right, you want to talk about the Magatama?
Just really quickly, there's I think like 24, 25 Magatama. Correct me on that. And basically what they are kind of like armor in a sense without being armor. It's like that thing that you ingested in the beginning that Lucifer gives to you and you swallow, and it's what makes you a demon. And everybody's on a hunt for Magatama and Magatsui, which is kind of like the ethereal flow of energy in this vortex world. And it gives you power, you know, and so the Magatama is what contains that. And that's just kind of like a narrative description of it. From a functional perspective, it allows you to get certain skills and have certain resistances and weaknesses. Usually you have to buy them, but sometimes they come with plot in the story, and sometimes they come with side quests. There's a couple of really cool side quests where you get one of them is Puzzle Boy, another one you fight Black Frost. That's pretty memorable too. And you can, like, it's really helpful to get them so that you can customize your resistances going into boss battles, but also so you can get some pretty badass skills. Mm-hmm. What were some of your favorite or most memorable Magatamas that you got throughout the game?
I'm not going to know any of the names of them,
okay.
But the the most memorable one for me was it was in like the basement of the prison, and I was doing a strength build. And it gave me like a ridiculous amount of strength. And it took strength just to open the door, which was funny.
Yeah, that's the only thing that you customized, right? Was strength.
Yeah. And it was cool. You couldn't use it forever because its weaknesses were incredible. Like it just had so many weaknesses that, like I remember the moment I realized I can't use this anymore was I farmed for probably 30 minutes of just straight farming. And then somebody used an instant kill spell, which it was weak against, and then I died. And I lost all of it. So I was like, you know what?
Oh, yeah.
I just can't use this one anymore. As much as it fits what I'm trying to do, it's not going to work.
There was another physical spell that you could buy from the collector mannequin, though, that had a lot less weaknesses, but it still gave you like plus 10 vitality and plus 10 strength.
That's the one I ended up using until I got... at the end... You can buy one at like the last shop. It's like for like 150 grand, but it's like
oh my gosh, yeah.
it's like a holy one that gives you all the holy spells. So I use that, which ended up giving me like an almighty move that you could hit people with. It was like Ketsu or some weird name, but it was an almighty attack that did like 500 damage a punch.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was my other favorite. What about you?
So you talked about the physical build, which I did the first time because I was kind of following you. The second time I did a magic build, and I did the magic Magatamas, and what was awesome about that is like every one that you clear, like the force Magatama or the fire Magatama, they usually give you a null force or a drain fire, and that would negate a lot of these weaknesses on the other Magatamas. And so, they're unique because they give you like plus stat boosts and stuff. Like I ended up using one that was like +2 to magic and +8 to vitality. So then I had maxed out vitality and magic on my main character. But one of my favorite spells was called Magma Axis, and I got that through the second Fire Magatama. And when completely buffed and the enemy was completely negated, it did as high as 2,800 damage to the final boss.
Holy
level
shit.
70.
Jesus.
So the spell uses HP as opposed to mana, which most of the physical spells do. So I would have somebody else on the team that would be a healer. Usually, though, with my vitality, because I was at like 700 and it was only taking out 100 HP, it was like minuscule. I would do that. I would skip a turn. I'd do that twice in a turn. I'd do 5,000 damage to an enemy in one turn.
Oh my god, that's insane.
Yeah. I was doing around that, though, with physical attacks in the end game, too, with that same kind of like max status boost and max status negating on the enemy.
God damn.
There's one that plays in the cutscene in the beginning where like the main character is like summoning this earthquake. That's a physical spell you can get with one of those Magatama, the physical ones. I can't remember what it's called, though. Super cool, though.
I think Scotty was learning Earthquake, and I told her not
like
to.
Hades Blast or something? I don't know.
Hades. There's a move called Earthquake, but yeah, Hades Blast is one of them.
Maybe it was Earthquake. I don't know.
She was trying to learn Earthquake. I'm like, you're my spellcaster. What are you doing, you idiot? So blocked her on that one. But the last thing I want to talk about is bosses, and the reason I want to talk about it is I think they encompass what's great about the combat in this game more than anything. Is that the bosses? Some of them end up being your traditional like beat them up before they can kill you, and they have a bunch of HP. But some of them end up being more puzzles than actual like boss fights that you would think of. And I think it just really emphasizes how interesting the combat is in this game. Is that they'll have very specific weaknesses and very specific patterns, and you have to learn them and catch on. And some of them are very bizarre. The one that we talked about in a text message being one of them, being an outside example of just how crazy they can be. Every 4 turns, or it's been a while, but every 4 or every 8 turns, he casts a spell that murders the lowest HP person on the field.
And every 4 turns, or the first turn, he'll heal the person with the lowest HP.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Like I played it the first time. I could not figure it out, so I looked at the guide for that. Called Trumpeter. He was one of the fiends, but yeah, that one threw me for a loop.
But it's just these
the first time too. The first fiend that you fight is called Matador, and I read some internet comments on YouTube videos for the soundtrack, and it's like, this is the sound when most people stop the game at Matador. He's brutal. He starts by doing max evasion boost. But pretty much you can't hit any of his moves. You can't hit him unless you boost your accuracy or reduce his, and so you lose a turn every time that you miss. Your press turn thing is screwed. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's so many challenges associated with these bosses. Metatron, he was like one of the ones in the Labyrinth of Amala. He had some crazy like light spells that would be insta kills as well. The end bosses in the Tower of Kagatsuchi, oh boy, we could have whole conversations on those. You're lucky you picked the path of the mantra.
Was it the harder one? Was the other one?
Yeah, dude. Do you want me to tell you what she does?
Yeah.
So Chiaki's goddess, Gaia? I don't remember what it is. She has a move called Gaia's Navel. And
that was what it was called in the Chrono Cross.
Before she uses it, she says, I'm going to expose you for what you really are. You use this guy as naval. She focuses on your main character. It's a curse move. So if you don't have curse Magatom, curse block, you're gonna get hit with it. It turns you into a fly.
Oh, I fought that.
You did.
Mm-hmm. I actually won that fight as a fly.
Same.
Which was like hilarious. Like I was just laughing thinking about just how silly that was. Like end game boss, and I'm like ordering my demons, and I'm this little fly just sitting there like, go get him, go get him.
I'm surprised you had to fight it though, because wasn't that your goddess? Talk about that in a bit, I guess.
Yeah, but she said, she's like, we're going for the same thing, but like it was like a strength thing. It was like
you have to challenge me first or something, right?
Yeah, like only one of us should do it, and we want the strongest to do it. I was like, I thought I was ready to just skip the whole thing. I was like, hey, what's up? Let's get out of here. And
I expected that too.
I ended up fighting every boss in the damn thing. I was like, I thought I was only gonna.
Well, actually, I don't know if you did, but we'll talk about that.
Well, yeah, but every boss that was on my list, I thought that it was gonna be like I pick one and skip the others, but I just fought every single one of them. I thought that was bullshit. I was like, all right, I'll kill you. I know I was trying to help you, but so
sweet bosses though. Some very memorable ones. Fighting Thor, fighting Sakahagi, and the elephant. Fighting like the frost snake in the Ikebukuro prison. And he gets smaller every round. It's a lot of memories with them.
Yeah. Real briefly, because I don't know how important it is, but we can hit on the music for this game. It was composed by Shoji Meguro, with additional work by those guys. The soundtrack included tunes from previous Shin Megami Tensei titles, composed by Tsukasa Masuko. While composing the music, Meguro attempted to express his feelings when he saw the world while remaining true to the styles established to the original Megami Tensei games, which means he made a soundtrack.
Confirmed.
Taking inspiration from the game's dungeon battle transitions and the cutscenes combination of current graphics with classic use of subtitles for storytelling, Meguro created modulating tunes which included elements from 1980s music. Meguro also introduced orchestral elements which were absent from previous Megami Tensei scores, using it to emphasize the gameplay's constant shifts between movement and stillness. Meguro generally worked solo on the original version, but for the director's cut, he had help composing new tracks. I was okay with the music in this game. Definitely more of a rock feel than most of the games I play. I played a lot of this one on mute. What about you?
Okay, I didn't play it on mute for a lot of the time because I was, the gameplay is supplemented well with scenes and with the voiceover work. I really like the voiceovers. Obviously, it is a lot of the music guy saying, I did this and I was inspired by this. And I remember we were reading one bit where he's like, and then my fingers couldn't stop moving or whatever it was. Like, as I was thinking of the concept for the music. All right, you made the soundtrack. It's a really good soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's, battle theme is good. And it varies. There are several battle themes. It is pretty heavy metal rockish. I like the title loop theme so much. It's very good. There's also a couple throwbacks, like Ginza is a theme that I'm familiar with from SMT4. Oh no, that's the shop theme. But the Ginza one there's a Ginza here and there's a Ginza in 4, and they both have overlapping melodies. And so I really like that. A couple underrated ones. I really like the Overworld. I really like the Mannequin kind of like jest theme music. I like the subtle effects of, some of the dungeons. Like, they're just creepy. And then going into battle, it really emphasizes the battle music. Like, I think of, like, the Ginza Underpass, and it's just kind of like... It feels kind of like classic Japanese, kind of like traditional, in a sense, where it's like you hear, like, maybe, like, these kind of, like... I don't know how to describe these instruments, but, like, just kind of like a bell ringing... and it's not so much music as it is melancholy.
The only thing that stood out to me was the combat music. One of them sounded like a ZZ Top song, Sharp Dressed Man.
Okay.
Like it kept doing that. Like, you know, in the ZZ Top song, it's every girl's crazy about a sharp dressed man, and then the guitar starts playing. It just sounded so similar to that. It always made me chuckle. But that was kind of hit for me with the music. I would always take Persona's music over this. Obviously, they're different games with different tones, but it would be kind of funny to hear Persona's music playing it during this. You'll never see it coming.
World, baby.
We're wrapping up the game. Let's talk about the multiple endings here and just the ending of the game itself with the reasons.
Sure.
You picked, or I picked the what do you call it, the strength one. I don't remember what the name of that.
I can't remember. It's associated with the mantra, the way of the mantra or something. Yeah. That's one ending. Another ending is the reason of musubi. If you know what musubis are, you probably lived in Hawaii. It's like this little spam on rice. So I thought that was funny when he introduced it as the reason of musubi. But it's basically kind of like we're just going to let what happens, happens. And that one's associated with Isamu, kind of edgy high school boy friend, not boyfriend. We should also say that the reason of the mantra is Chiaki's, the girl who's into the cult magazine. We have the reason of Shijima, which is associated with Hikawa. I couldn't get his name right in the beginning of the archive, but I got it now. Which is essentially the desire to create a world of stillness, which I assume or presume to mean that where everything is peaceful and we don't have to worry about noise, and it just kind of like this noise of humanity and just everything being bothersome. He's a CEO, so
I assumed it meant everything was going to be erased.
It's possible too.
I assumed he meant just I want to destroy everything, including myself. Like just all of it's gone. Like a cycle. It's
very possible. I didn't.
But it doesn't say.
I didn't choose that ending, so I don't know. But you're right. Yeah, it's never clearly aligned. You have the reason of freedom, which is associated with Takao, the teacher, but she's possessed by this banished goddess named Aradia. And she was also part of a cult, kind of like Hikawa, but she was excised and burned alive as a witch. And she's back in this world, although she doesn't belong in this vortex world. And she's trying to create her own ending. And even though there's no place or belonging for her, she believes in the freedom, I guess, to create a world in your light. Or whatever light you see fit. So I don't fully understand that one. I did pick it, but we'll talk about my ending in a bit. There's the demon ending, which is essentially you don't align with any path. And then there's the true demon ending, which is where you align with Lucifer, who you learn wants to disrupt the cycle of vortex worlds coming into and out of existence and being summoned, which is the first ending that I picked, which is completely paradoxical because I then went on to produce a new cycle.
Didn't work.
No, it didn't work from a logical standpoint, but it's fine.
Yeah. My ending was not very memorable.
What happened?
I was just hanging out with that girl, Chiaki. Is that her name?
Yeah.
We're like, you want to go see the new world? And then I didn't say anything, but I was like, yeah. And then we were on a beach or something and just walked over.
But that's the world where the strong survive?
Yeah.
Beach?
I don't. It could have not been a beach. It was such a bland ending. It was just us two talking, and just we did it. You want to go experience the world? Yeah. It was maybe I got the worst ending or something where it's just nothing cool happened. But
I was warned not to pick Isamu's ending. I was told it would be bad, so I purposely avoided that. But I might have gone for him if it weren't for that. I thought the first one. I did the true demon ending, which is the one that was added to Nocturne in the Western release and Maniacs edition. And in that ending, I was rewarded more so by the exploration of the Mala Labyrinth, which is basically completely optional side dungeons, and you get so much out of it. I remember texting you that one picture, I just got 500,000 Maka from this guy, or it's Maka, right?
Yeah.
And there was such challenging combat down there, and every time you get to a new Kalpa, you would you would have to give the menorahs from the fiends, and you'd have to fight every fiend, and then you're rewarded in this version with Raido Kuzunoa as a playable character. There's a segment where he goes chasing after you in the third Kalpa, and also between every Kalpa you get storyline as to what's going on with these characters. You get storyline into Hikawa, you get storyline into Radia, you get storyline into Hijiri, and you get storyline into the creation of the Vortex worlds. That is, it's really, I almost wish that was part of the main game, so that more people could understand it and experience it, because it really does shed light on a couple, of the extremist beliefs and representations, and also just the tragic nature of Hijiri. The ending itself kind of sucked because, okay, first off, you have to fight after you fight Kagetsuchi at the very end. That was your last boss, right?
Yeah, the big circle guy.
Right. Big circle disco guy. That's a good soundtrack song, by the way. I don't know, but immediately after that fight, you meet the old man. But he starts as a young boy, and then his shadow elongates, and on the other end of the shadow is the old man in the wheelchair. He says, "You've done well. We're now going to test you and make sure you're ready for the final battle." You fight this massive, oversized version of Lucifer, and he's got just these insane spells that do like hundreds of damage to you, and no weaknesses or anything. And it was a struggle. The first time I fought him, I died, and I had to redo the entire Kagetsuchi battle, and then him. Yeah, it was just tough. That's the Dragon Quest thing. It's like do 2 boss battles back to back, and so that in terms of combat was a great challenge ending. But then all you get is basically like scene from the cutscene before the game even starts in the intro movie, where there's just a bunch of demons in the shadows, and you're leading the pack, and you're preparing to go off into war with the Great Will to end the cycles of Kagetsuchi. So it's a bit of an ambiguous ending where it's not explicit, and it kind of ends on that cliffhanger, because I was kind of hoping for a final battle with the divinity, with God or whatever, and that didn't happen. So the true demon ending kind of disappointed me.
What about the other ending?
I did the freedom ending, the one with the teacher.
How'd that
That's
one
the
go?
good ending.
It went well?
That was much better. Yeah. So that one's complicated in how you get it. You have to reject everybody's ending, but you have to say, when Aradia questions you after Yoyogi Park, to that you're not afraid and you'll do what it takes to live up and pursue freedom. And then you have to reject kicking her, or stopping her for Hikawa when he's summoning Arimon. And so I was just confused, and I wasn't certain I was even on that path until the end. But it did work. I just followed the guide for it. She believes in a reborn world. She originally went on with this plan with Hikawa, but then she backed off. And she's not clear on her reason. But by the end, I think she knows what she wants. And you pan out after the battle with Kagetsuchi. He's pissed at you, by the way. He doesn't want you to bring this world, because she doesn't belong here. But you pan out, and you're just on your laptop at home, and then Isami's like, "Hey, we going out for lunch or what?" And so you do, but you have an email from your teacher that says, "Can't thank you enough. It's been so good. Because of you, I've been able to bring about the world that I wanted, and where everyone has a chance and everything like that." And so it's quote unquote the best ending, and I went with it because it seemed like a lot of people seem to like that ending. Pretty satisfying, more satisfying than just like the pan out of, there's closure to it. Yeah. Whereas I didn't feel there was closure with the true demon ending.
What ending did you get? Put it in the comments below.
What ending do you want to get? Yeah. I was tempted to do the Hikawa route and just see what the World of Stillness looks like. I think that's the one that interests me most after our conversations.
I think we'll talk about the legacy.
How do you feel about multiple endings like in this game?
I think they're kind of a staple of SMT. I'm fine with them. I'm not one to get to search for multiple endings. Like, full disclosure, I don't do that for even Chrono Trigger. I think the only game I've done that for was Nier, because Alex insisted on it, and they were good, some of them. I think sometimes the game wanting you to do multiple endings is a little bit, there's a word for it, self-indulgent or something like that. I don't have the time to do that, but it's cool that they offer it. Personally, I'm not interested in them.
Okay.
But in a game like this, where choices matter, it's nice to know that choices matter.
Yeah.
Say that.
I mean, they are the whole justification for your playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I did New Game Plus because I did want to see another ending. I want to see like a standard ending that was not in the original game. It was really great to have the narrative of the True Demon ending. But this game assists you in playing it the second time by giving you full access to the Demon Compendium, so you can summon any monster that you had in the previous playthrough. You have to earn all your Maka back, but I cruised through this in 20 some odd hours, and was able to see a second ending. And I think that compared to like Chrono Cross, where it's just so random. Like, if you have Poshul in the party, you get another ending. And if you stop after you get Kid in the party, you'll have another ending. You fight, Shala. Mm-hmm. I guess that might make sense if I saw some of those endings, but it didn't, there's no rationale. There's no reason. Like, this one has 6 reasons in front of you.
Yeah.
So, I had that reason. I had that attachment, so it made sense for me. Like Persona, right? I don't see a reason to get another ending in Persona.
Yeah, I don't either. In fact, I got like a bad ending on like, full disclosure. Hopefully, we play this at some point. But I got a bad ending on Persona 4. Like, and the way to get the right ending is to do it all over again and answer the question, like some question differently. And I said, "Fuck that! I just spent 40 hours." Yeah. I'm not going to do another 20 hours of the same goddamn... No.
Yeah.
So... no. But, yeah. It's cool. I think it's cool that they're there. And as long as they make each ending feel like an ending, good on them, I guess. I was fine with it. I wasn't blown away by the ending, but I was fine with the... I was fine with the, the boss fight and all that stuff going into it. So the story itself is fine. So I'm cool with it.
I have to wonder, is Atlas a big company at this time? They on the level of like, Square Enix?
No. Not this.
So,
time. I mean, they're being bought out by other companies.
And it's like at this time, like in 2003, it's not even like pre-production. So... I almost understand the restraints. Like, we're listening to the artist talk about concept for this game as though he's a major contributor, director, etc.
Yeah.
Atlas then is not what Atlas is today.
No.
Atlas publishes everything to all these RPGs. I guess they got bought out by Sega, but so with the limitations, I understand why maybe the cutscenes and the endings are not as thorough or developed as they could be.
But I'm kind of okay with it because the game is more of a thoughtful experience than it is a cinematic one. These games aren't very cinematic, and that might be budget, but it's just what I've come to expect from them, is that they're very subtle, and they don't necessarily have long cutscenes like that demon one. I mean, it's not the most exciting ending, but it does seem like an ending that they would do. It's just like the idea, okay, you're going to lead these guys, and here's a picture of you doing it, and that's what you get. It's like, that is what they would do. So I'm not necessarily saying it's bad or anything. It's kind of what I expect from them. So it wasn't a letdown by any means.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't like, well, screw my playthrough.
Yeah.
SMT4 actually I kind of was, because I actually got put on a path I didn't want to pick.
Oh.
This one is more explicit in like who you align with. You actually like really say like, are you going to ride with me or not? Is it, Isamu's saying that to you in the basement of the Mala network or whatever. In 4, it was far too ambiguous, and I got put on a path I didn't want to.
Well, thank God I didn't have it on this one.
I agree. Got what I wanted.
Let's talk about the legacy of this game. I'm going to skip the first one and go to the next one. What do you think about the difficulty of SMT? We can talk about 3, but maybe the series in general. It's been referred to, I don't know by who, but I know it has been, as the Dark Souls of JRPGs. What are your thoughts on the difficulty of SMT?
It's not a hand holder. It's a lot of figuring it out. You said it before, it's a thoughtful experience. You have to be very thoughtful about your party making, about your attack using, about what skills you put on demons. I think it's more so a challenge in terms of customization. I spend minutes looking at my skills, like what can I afford to sacrifice? Mm-hmm. It's one of compromise, where you have to compromise aspects of your main character or your side characters. And I think there's still enough systems to get your back here. If you have enough Magatamas, you're fine. If you've done enough demon like recruitment, you're fine. And there are going to be challenges, but as long as you're aware of the skills and how to use them and thinking about what you might need, you'll be fine. I had status boosters on my team for most of it. Sukukaja got me through the Matador fight fine. Debilitate, that helped me so much with some of the later demons when they were just getting overpowered. Mm-hmm. Dekaja would take off all buffs on enemy units, and so I think that it's a game where, although it may be challenging, you need to invest your time into understanding the game, and you'll be fine. If you have no idea what you're doing, like if this is your first RPG, yeah, maybe not a good start, but I'm not of the mind that this game is just brutal and cruel, which is kind of what I think of as like a Dark Souls.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Dark Souls player, so that statement can mean one of two things to me. It can either mean it's hard for the sake of being hard, which is what I've heard, or it can be a game that you said doesn't hold your hand. Like, it gives you the tools you need, tells you how to do it, and teaches you through the gameplay. But it's not going to hold your hand through it. And so if the second one is what it is, then yeah, maybe it is the Dark Souls of JRPGs. If it's hard for the sake of being hard, I don't think so. I think the game isn't, it tells you everything you need. It gives you all the tools. Make these demons. Here's how to fuse them. Yeah, it can be needlessly complicated to get them, but it fits with the story and it makes you understand the world you're in better. I guess I lean towards yes. It's the Dark Souls of JRPG, whatever that phrase means, but in the most positive of senses. Like if it's like 1-to-1, like somebody's like, which one's harder, Dragon Quest or Shin Megami Tensei? Quick. I'd be like, oh, Shin Megami Tensei is harder. Like it is, but it's a turn-based, turn-based RPG. Like, it's as hard as one of those could be, but it's all up to you and learning how to play the game. So,
what's the easy version? What's not a Dark Souls of RPGs?
The new Pokemons.
Yeah, that's not fair though. Like a Final Fantasy game or something. Like, I still thought 7 was really hard. Like the Sephiroth battle.
Yeah, I don't know. So, like, I think Final Fantasies are pretty even keeled as far as difficulty. I don't think they're hard. At first, I thought Dragon Quest were really hard, like because they were just a different style of like unforgivingness. But once you understand, you just grind the shit out of your characters. Like, it doesn't matter. In SMT, grinding is like 20% of the game. The other is like, because you can grind all you want. But if a character can block your physical attacks, it ain't gonna matter. Like, it just didn't do shit. So grinding won't help you as much as it will in like a Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy. So I can see where that gets a little more difficult. Easy games?
The other difference too is like Dragon Quest is you die, you start back at the church with half your money. it can just keep going. You don't lose progress.
Mm-hmm.
You could have grinded for a while, then suddenly, frickin' Throne uses Mahama on, and it's an insta light kill, and your main character gets hit. Game over.
Yep.
When that happens, that shit sucks.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm not gonna like, I'm not gonna not say forgive it. I'm not gonna not acknowledge it. Like, you can get destroyed. You can get your shit wrecked, and like, you know, if you're caught in the middle of like an area, you know, and you can't make it back to that save point in time because, you know, the encounter rate is pretty high, you know, you may end up gaming over and you have to restart from your save point. But I still felt like there were enough save points. The map was super helpful in knowing when I needed to go back. I would save frequently and I would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it has that PS1 era of like, you know, game over, you die. Like I remember Chrono Cross being like that too. But there's enough tools at your disposal, be they demons, Magatamas, items, save points, etc., to really help you through your experience.
Yeah, I agree.
Plus, the new one has easy difficulty if you want it.
If you're a baby.
Need mercy. Mercy!
Sorry.
Hey guys, welcome to SMT baby mode.
Yeah. No, it's if you need to do it, go for it. If it helps you enjoy the game, you're a baby. Next question: is Nocturne a competent JRPG or just RPG?
Say JRPG. It's set in Japan.
It's the most JRPG of any, right?
All you could ask for.
It's made
Japanese
in Japan
locations.
It's set in Japan.
Stop at the sushi shop and grab me a roll on your way out.
Yeah, I think it might be more competent than most. I think especially if we take the J out of it, just pure RPG. Its roots, it has the roots in dungeon crawling, which is about as old as, you know, video game RPGs can get. And it handles those mechanics better than any dungeon that you'll find on the PS1 or PS2. If you're looking for a classic dungeon crawler made on a modern console at the time, there is no more competent RPG, I could argue, than Nocturne. It is it does the heart and soul of what an RPG is so well, so painfully well at times, that it is the most competent. That's my opinion on Nocturne.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this like makes me think it's almost like to a T formula for how to do RPG.
Oh yeah.
Multiple significant endings. Silent protagonist in a purposeful way. Demon recruitment system that has collection aspects. A competent gameplay system through the press turn combat. You know, every 2D dungeon crawler segment expanded to be, you know, challenging and puzzling and really keep you on your toes. You know, I think back to like that the fairy segment where like they're changing locations and you can stand on top of a roof and you can look at their locations. Every bit of this, you know, from start to finish is purposeful, it's well meant, and it's streamlined. It's very anti-Chrono Cross.
Oh yeah.
Chrono Cross was a hot mess.
Yeah.
You know, in many ways. And some good and some bad. You know, like narrative was like all over the place. This one is very, like it's. I think, you know, while there may be a little bit of fumbling for understanding, we are dealing with the Hollow Earth theory here. You know, and Gnosticism. Yeah. So like, you know, I mean, just accept it for what it is. But you know, it's still straightforward. How do you want the world to be reborn? Do you? And it's unconventional, and I appreciate its unorthodoxy at a time where so much was orthodox.
Yeah, so the question is it a competent JRPG or RPG? Is it my favorite? Hell no. It doesn't crack that list at all, I don't think. Because at the time, well, maybe on the PS2. If I'm being honest, the PS2 didn't. Everyone looks at that as a great console for RPGs. I don't. I actually don't think the console was that. Like, I think of the golden age as PS1 and maybe the end of maybe just the Super Nintendo. So Super Nintendo and PS1 is the golden age of JRPGs. It's not my favorite RPG of the time, nor is it now. But you gotta respect, like, everything that it did right, and so rigidly correct of what it was trying to translate over, because they didn't make any mistakes with this game. Arguably, and it's my personal opinion, I don't love the graphics. It never quite grew on me. There were flashes of brilliance, the camera changes being one of them. They happened so few and far between. I loved them when they happened. But even when they pulled out on the cameras on those, you could just see that it was a grid. Like, it even looked more like a grid then, of just how square they wanted to make the game, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if aside from the graphics, if we're just looking at the RPG mechanics, purely the RPG stuff, it's phenomenal. It's close to perfect.
Crazy. And you don't like it. Well, not that you don't like it. I understand what you're saying, but it's not even like a favorite, which I think is it can be a problem for people. Is like, you know, Persona that is the antithesis to this, where it's like you develop strong attachments to characters as part of the gameplay system and just naturally anyway. Mm-hmm. This one, it's like it is superficial in a sense. So, you know, the core narrative, you don't draw attachments to side characters or possibly even your primary character in like through conversation or maybe I don't want to say naturally, but you know, the attachment that you draw is in the choices that you make, the choices of demons that you use, the choices of you know, like what path are you going to go down towards, and it's almost a risk in a sense for a game. Mm-hmm. It's risky to rely on, instead of one find or you know, decision and path that we can invest all of our time into, here's some options. But it's one that pays off in what you put into it. So, like, if the definition of a competent ARPG or RPG is a game where you assume role and you grow with your characters, I personally think that despite not seeing some of the relationships flourish in as explicit ways as you see in other series, it's meaningful and it's purposeful and it's engaging, and for that reason I would say yes, it's a competent RPG/JRPG.
Now we get the question that is going to scorch the internet.
Controversy, let's go.
Is Nocturne HD Remaster a bad remaster? Oh boy.
Before we answer that, let's just address what the remaster added or possibly even detracted from the original game. Probably.
Okay.
Number one, merciful difficulty was added as a free download. If you want it, you can download it. In merciful difficulty, this is baby mode. We've established this. Damage dealt to enemies is doubled. Damage received from enemies is halved. XP earned from battles is tripled. Maka earned from battles is quintupled. Player hit evasion rate is greatly increased, and counter rate is lowered. That's one.
Experience received from battles is tripled. Are you fucking kidding me?
How much of a baby do you need to be for that?
Jesus.
Oh my god. I'm almost... Can you imagine how quickly you play through this?
Oh my god. You're going to be...
Just leave auto attack on.
Dude.
You describe it as a concession to modern gaming trends, acknowledging players who would want to easily experience the stories and endings.
That's what they... Okay. I get that people are babies now. Like, I totally see it. I understand. To this extent, I don't know about that.
Welcome to SMT3 Nocturne the movie. Have your popcorn.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what 5 looks like, if this is what they think modern gamers are supposed to handle.
I'm like, they better not screw that up. No, I don't think they will, though. Okay. This is a remaster of the Maniacs Chronicle Edition, which had Raito Kuzunoa stand in for Dante as a special edition, preempting Devil Summoner 2. So that allows you to play as him very late in the game, if you get to that, and also to have some significant cutscenes and interactions with him. So as opposed to getting the Devil May Cry crossover, we got Raito Kuzunoa. With, I should add, a Maniacs pack, which is DLC that you could download. Any thoughts or care about that?
Well, I see a note here. I don't give two shits about Dante. I'm throwing that out there. But it looks like you have to pay for that. Like, that DLC is like a $10 fee.
Yes.
To play the game that already came out in America.
Yeah. I understand that. Here's my thing, though. It's like, you want to play as Dante so bad, get a PS3 and download the game for $10. Which is, I guess that's kind of a hypocrisy, right? It's because, like, you could download this game for $10 on the PS3, or you can download the DLC for this game for $10 on the on the PS4. So, yeah, I mean, as a matchup, it doesn't look good.
Now, I'm a capitalist. I'll throw that out there to the world, and I love the idea that they did that. I think it's hilarious. I don't think it's a good value, but if they want people to pay it, then and people do pay it, then good on them. I'm totally happy. Yeah. For me personally, that's fucking lame, and I would never pay for that. I think it's.
But would you rather get the original at $49.99 with Raito as $10 DLC, or would you rather get the version that never came out in America localized with the original as DLC?
Okay, me personally, I don't care about Raito either. Neither one of them, like, I haven't played that game, so it doesn't really matter to me. I think the Amala Labyrinth adds a lot of value to the game. So that being part of it, I think I'm happy with the version I have.
That was already there.
No, that was added content.
That was in Nocturne. That's why Dante was originally
right, but that wasn't in the original version.
What are you saying?
In the original version released in Japan, that was not.
No. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's what you mean. I thought you meant Nocturne in the West. It's just like a little distinguishing point. You're right.
Okay.
But the version that
are you asking, would I rather have the American version or
yes,
the newest? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess neither one of them matters too much to me, but I think the gamer that knows that this is the one that had Dante in it would want Dante in it.
Sure, but only 0.505 million people in America wanted this anyway. so whatever. Who's bitching, right? My thing is, like, have a game that never was localized being given localization, and that deserves applause. Whether this is sloppy or not, having it be DLC that you have to pay for, they did put the game out at $49.99 at launch at retail. Most games launch for $59.99. So if you do care that much about having Dante to play as, you can pay the price of a full game to get Dante. The other two DLC packs are garbage. One is for background music, and the other is for an optional dungeon that leads to no narrative.
Damn.
Just for grinding if you want it. So that's $69.99. Here's the thing, right? I'll read this. This is from Polygon. Bringing new sources in. While the new HD remaster boasts the ability to choose between the two demon hunting guest characters in order to play Dante's version, you'll either be paying an extra $9.99 fee for him as DLC or purchasing the $69.99 digital deluxe edition. You don't have to buy the digital deluxe edition. If you're buying that, you're getting played.
I believe in capitalism. If you want to release a game like that, go for it. But me personally, I ain't paying for that.
I mean, I didn't pay for any of the DLC packs. I don't care.
That's shit.
I understand, but you can already experience Nocturne with Dante on the PS2 and the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's more exciting that they have the Rhino segments and also voiceovers. They put voiceovers into this game. Do you care for that?
They were fine. The problem is I'm so used to that at this point. I didn't even realize they weren't in the original until I read about it. So it was like, oh, sucks for them. Back then, I guess they were just, I don't know. They don't sway one way or the other with me that much. In a game where there's more talking, I think I would have been happy. But this one, there isn't. It's not like there's like a million. It's not like Persona where there's like a million different scenes every day where they're talking. I think as a remaster.
Well, can we talk about the things that were omitted first?
All right, go ahead.
Before we answer it, because this is pivotal in saying if this is good or bad. Okay, again from Polygon, D'Angelo Epps. He reviewed this game on the day it came out, so good for them for having review copies. Atlas gave the game a nice overhaul, cleaning up and fully retexturing models and upgrading the lighting. However, don't expect the same for the FMV cutscenes, as they still have the same 4:3 aspect ratio you'd find in the original version. That stand out to you when you were playing?
Not really. His statement is weird. He's saying nice overhaul, cleaning up and fully retexturing models and upgrading the lighting. However, don't expect the same from the FMV cutscenes, as they still have the same 4:3 aspect ratio. Is he also saying that they're not fully retextured and upgraded, or is he?
I don't think they are. I think they're, because I just, in my second playthrough, I paid more attention to it, and they look the same. The same as like the stand, like, you know how everything's kind of like polished and looks kind of colorful in the game.
Yeah,
those they have more of a grainy look.
I will say, it's hard because I didn't play the original, so I don't really have a base point. But when I see something that says HD remaster, I guess I'm not thinking high definition remaster. I'm thinking remaster so it'll look good to me now. And I don't think this game looks that good to me. Now, maybe it's now in HD. Like, by the fact that it's, you know, the new screen size, the new, not 4:3, but like, you know, whatever the 6:10, 9, or whatever the new one is. Maybe that's what it actually means by HD remaster. But my opinion of a remaster is it should look good now. And I think it looks like a PS2 game. And to me, that's a problem.
It's a remaster, not a remake. Can't remaster the, like, would you say like Ocarina of Time remastered the environments to look much better on the 3DS?
I think they look better. I would say that the 3DS is understandably about the same visual quality as a N64. Yes. So, I mean, I guess I'm scaled down on what I want for that. I'm trying to think of other remasters like HD. That I guess at a certain point, a remaster is treading on remake if you're doing too much to it, and it's like where do you go leaning one way or the other?
If they repurposed like the walls to like look different, like there were some Atlas vending machines. I thought that was cool. I don't know if that was in the original game, but like if we're gonna call a remake a remake, we have to know what they remade, what they did differently. This is not doing things differently. It's more so to preserve the original experience, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I bought it, so clearly it was up to snuff for me at least to buy the game. So there's that. I could totally see why people would not be happy with this.
There's a few more reasons. Can I get into it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. Voice acting brings a whole new feeling to these characters in the game overall. Again, Polygon. I really wish I could say the same for the music. It is its heavily compressed quality had some charm on the PS2, but this remaster deserved more. A remastered official soundtrack has been released in the past, so it's a mystery as to why Atlas didn't import that over the original game version here.
Yep. You know, as I've stated, I'm not a huge fan of the soundtrack. Maybe the fidelity was what took me out of it. I can't speak to that. I'm not a music audiophile, so I wouldn't have known that. But I was not a fan of the music per se, so that I guess makes sense to me. I don't know that it being cleaner would have made me like it more, but
I didn't like question it at any time in my playthrough, being like, this sucks, like that. Oh, why doesn't it sound great? I think it's just, a real aficionado would pick up that it's different. Somebody who's maybe really into the games.
Somebody that knows would be. That was my big thing with like Dragon Quest 11, because I played through the whole PS4 version and was fine with it. And then I made like some video like what the 5 worst things about Dragon Quest 11, just trying to be clickbaity or whatever. And none of it was about the soundtrack, because I don't give a shit. I liked it. It was Dragon Quest music. I love it. And then somebody mentioned like, I can't believe you didn't even mention the soundtrack. And turns out if you look up like the original PS4 version soundtrack thing, everyone's pissed off because it's not orchestrated. But it is like a different. It's like synthesized or whatever. But I thought it was perfectly fine. Like, I didn't notice or care that much at all. I mean, I'm sure I would notice the difference, but I think it's when people know that there's like a better version, they decide that they hate the current version.
Yeah, it just becomes a talking point.
Yeah, like, yeah, but they didn't have the original or the newest soundtrack. It's like
it's an excuse to complain about like Atlas doing stuff. And then like the other thing is like, well, we have the price tab, right? Because you're paying for what? You're paying for a version that's outfitted for modern consoles with voice acting, and it's $49.99. Everyone's focused on what you pay after the fact, which would be $69.99 if you get all DLC packs. When's the last time you got all DLC packs for a game, or any?
Yeah.
I don't do that, so I don't see that as the price tab. If you want the digital deluxe, you're getting a deluxe. There's a reason it's deluxe. That's something else. You're getting multiple games technically if you get even one DLC pack. So the price tab is not. It's not a valid take on whether or not this is a good remaster, because you can get this game on sale right now for like $15 cheaper than the list price. You get on eBay for $30. You could get it like, well, I guess you say you could get the PS3 version for $10. So I mean, if you want to make arguments about the price, it's just because like you want it's just because you're being kind of a stickler for it,
Yeah, I would say it's not a good look for a remaster, but it is a remaster in every sense. I do think 50 is probably a little much for what we have here for. And again, I didn't play the original, but it looks like a port. Now, it might be cleaner. Like, the textures might be a lot, like, they touched up and everything would be better. But damn if it doesn't look like a port of a PS2 game. So
I had some problems with the visuals, actually, and even some other stuff, too, in my playthrough. Did you ever notice, right before you go into combat, that your main character's, like, shadow would appear right in front of him? Or, like, a kind of, like, transparent look of him?
Maybe that's what it was. I noticed something weird, and I couldn't quite like figure it out. But maybe that's what it was. Was it something like that? Because it always looked like the camera was pointing at something different, and then it was just
sometimes like the demons coming right into combat. You would just see their outline right before the battle or something. I noticed that a couple times. It's nothing game breaking. It's just like little off-putting things that maybe should have been touched up.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate thing of a very solid RPG with some questionable packaging. That unfortunately, modern gamers are so fickle. Like back then, you could. This is the only. I mean, game of the week, but still, back then, JRPGs, you couldn't get that many. Like even in the PS2 era, I mean, they were kind of dying. Like JRPGs, they were trying to make them different combats and everything. So traditional JRPG. Nowadays, God, you hand somebody this and they're not ready for it, they'll toss this to the side and be like, "Oh no, I'm gonna play Final Fantasy VII Remake or something." So I can see. I just think it was a bad look for a remaster, but it is a remaster in like every sense. So it's hard to say if it's good or bad. I would wager it's bad. I would go on the side of bad.
Okay.
If I had to pick. Good game.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what do we expect from a remaster. Ocarina of Time Remaster had done like the extra or what the hell did they call it? The Master Quest mode, but they completely changed the dungeon order, so you get a whole bunch of bonus content there. You know, it was outfitted for 3D, so you could experience the world of Ocarina of Time in 3D. And you know, I think people are looking for like these additions, and I don't know, like the addition of voice acting is great. I loved it, and I like how good this game looked, but it did have little tiny problems that, although not game breaking, were somewhat annoying. Like I had the game crash a couple of times, and I wonder, like only when I would go into save rooms or another room, happened like once on my most recent playthrough, 3 times on the first playthrough. I wonder if that's even a problem on the PlayStation 2. You can get this game for cheap, like on the PlayStation 2 or the PlayStation 3. So, you know, it is like, well, what am I paying for here? I saw up here that due to for the Asian release published by Sega, the Chronicles content with Dante was originally omitted. Due to protests from the Chinese consumers, the Chronicles content was eventually offered as DLC for Chinese players. It was free for a 2-week period before becoming a paid item on January 7th of the following year in China. Like, I get it. These companies got to make their money, and I'm okay with it, like supporting it in the hopes of like SMT 5 being that much better. But I also am willing to question, to what extent am I willing to support lame what's the word here I'm looking for? Lame practices by these video game companies, such as you know, like it should have had more test runs so that like the crashing didn't happen. I've heard the Switch one has problems, so that the texturing was really beautiful and you couldn't even argue it. So I wouldn't even call out like the transparent character things. You know, I only played this game twice. How long does it take to realize that and to fix it up? And Atlas today is not the Atlas of 2003. They have Sega money.
Yeah.
Get some of that, throw some of that Sonic money in there, bro. Like,
yeah.
You know, so I could say it's a bad remaster. I didn't mind supporting it, and I'm happy to support it, but I don't want to have these questions again.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Bad remaster, maybe. Great game, yeah. So it's like you could have a problem with it, but if you want to play a great JRPG that's not going to hold your hand because they don't make them like this anymore, then you should still get it. Yeah, it's not the best remaster, but it's better than most of what you're playing right now. So
it was a breath of fresh air. Like, I was so happy to experience it. And the chances of me playing this on the PS2, none. Chance of me playing on PS3, maybe a little higher. I'm not big into the PS3. I just got it, but not playing this on the PS4, like it was a win. You know, I could share gameplay. I got tons of gameplay saved, you know, and
gonna need that.
I was able to live stream. It's all yours, man. Use it up. I need it too. I was able to voice chat and like stream and experience the game that way without the hassle of setting up my capture hardware. I was able to put the game on power save mode. You know, so if I had to run, I could do that. So like, just the mere existence of it on modern platforms was great. I'm sure Switch owners can appreciate that stuff too.
Last question. Is Nocturne a good first entry for newcomers to Megami Tensei?
You think?
No.
Well, okay, so let's clarify. This is your only Mega 10 game that you finished, right?
Yeah, if we're talking about pure SMT, then yes. This is the only one.
Huh.
I think Persona is just way more for fun and easy for people to slide into, or even just some of the newer SMT experiences offer more quality of life that I think the modern gamer is going to require to get into something like this. This game, I mean, I already knew how SMT worked, so I didn't have as many questions, but this game is rough on some of that.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm gonna take the Personas out of this and just say, is this a good entry for the mainline series? Probably not. Or maybe yes. It's hard to say because it's so unforgiving, but it's also simplified. Like, I thought SMT4 was actually a bit more complicated in some aspects. I thought Demon Negotiation was more complicated there. I thought like some of the inventory systems were more complicated. Some of the like where do you go next in the map was more complicated. I actually thought this was streamlined really well and it was straightforward. But you need to have a bearing for a lot of these things, like negotiation, like the element system, like upgrades, like skill allocation, like the compendium, and it's intimidating, and it's not well explained in this game. They really do just throw you in here to figure shit out, and if you don't know those things, it's going to be a hard time those first few hours. I don't even think when I was doing we were doing the or we were doing this remaster, right? And like, do you remember your sentiments within the first 5 hours?
Not liking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was vague, which it is, and non, like you just kind of lack direction, and not the prettiest game, which it gets better looking as the game goes on, but it's still at the beginning pretty rough. And then it takes like a good 5 to 10 hours before this game kicks it into gear.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that, and I think for a newcomer, that's not healthy. That's not helpful. I hesitate to say it's not a good first one though, because even though it's not hand holding, I think you can more or less readily figure out what it is you have to do and where you have to go. Very few times was I questioning that.
I would wager that 5 is going to be your entry point when that comes out. That will likely be the easier to handle on all these fronts. I would, especially reading what they did to the easy mode on this game. Oh my god! I would wager that some of that will make it over, like in a fraction, but some of that will make it over.
That's technically another thing. If like you're that intimidated about it, this game has the Mercy Pack, which makes it stupidly easy. And so
yeah, I guess.
You don't even have to worry about the combat and stuff. So
that's true.
Listen. Yeah, you know what? If you're a newcomer and you want to try it, use the Mercy Pack.
You're a baby.
Yeah, dude. Nocturne baby, first time for everything. Or SMT babies.
All right, Teddy. Last thoughts on Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne.
No thoughts. Wow. I'm glad I played it. It's a groundbreaking experience. Seriously, the earth shatters before your eyes and then is reborn. You see it complete its cycle. And it's your own experience. It's very purposeful. It's very meaningful. And it may have room for ambiguity, but with that, it makes you think. It makes you very pensive and reflective on the experience if you have that kind of mentality while you're playing that. Or you might just be fucking bored. But me, I loved it.
No, I loved it too. I think it's so much different than what we would usually play, like a Dragon Quest, and it's also very different than a Final Fantasy. So it's nice to get the third side, the other side of it that we're not necessarily as used to doing, and goddamn, it's cool to have said we beat a hardcore RPG.
Hey guys, we did it. We beat the Dark Souls of JRPGs.
I mean, look at the sales numbers on how many people bought it. Can you imagine the fraction of those that actually beat it? Like, that ain't bad. We did all right.
Well, we're in the archive.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Teddy. I think we can consider SMT3 Nocturne archived.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time.
Later.